of the Transportation Planning Organization. Hello, everyone. Welcome back after our July hiatus. I hope everybody had a chance to take a nice breather, clear their brains of all this, and then we get to jump right back in. I'm Rick Fernandez. I have the privilege of chairing this committee. And as is our normal course, and it'll be particularly helpful to us, I think, over the next couple of 3 meetings, because we'll have some new people coming. We go around the room from my left all the way around and then virtually and ask everyone to introduce themselves and identify their appointing authority, if you would, please. So again, I'm Rick Fernandez. I'm the Hispanic at-large representative.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, everyone, I'm Stephen, Vice Chair from the City of Plant City.
Hi, I'm Dana Lazarus, we're at large, and I'm appointed by City Councilwoman Lynn Hurtak.
Jim Davison, appointed by Commissioner Josh Wastel.
Good evening. I'm Joseph Citro, and I've been appointed by Commissioner Harry Cohen.
Stephen Jones at large, Apollo Beach.
Ed Brzezinski, appointed by the Expressway Authority.
Ivy Adams, at large, Tampa, Hillsborough, City.
Dustin Johnson at large, Riverview.
Chris Gonzalez, member at large, Hispanic representative.
And online,
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Brown, and I was appointed by Commissioner Myers.
I remind you, that if you're online, I'll remind you, please, to mute yourself if you're not recognized and speaking. Carolyn, thank you. Who's next online?
Good evening,
Christine?
everyone. This is Christine Acosta. I'm appointed by City Councilman Guido Maniscalco, and I will use mute now.
Any other committee members online?
Good evening, Bill Roberts, appointed by the Aviation Authority.
Hey, Bill.
Good evening, everyone.
Nice to see you all. Anybody else?
Artie Fryer, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Artie Fryer, with the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Committee.
And then we also have Raymond Budd.
Yes, hi. Oh, yes, Raymond Budd. I don't know, I applied to be on the, I just remember I applied a while ago to join the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I got appointed. I guess I work with Sarah Caper.
Yes, and Raymond, you are officially a committee member at large.
Oh, at large. Okay, I'm at large. All right.
Welcome, Raymond.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I do not see any other current committee members.
Okay. Right, Gail, I know this may seem redundant to some of you, especially in the audience, but if you would please, Gail, go ahead and call the roll for declaration of quorum.
Yes, sir. Rick Fernandez.
Here.
Stephen Hollenkamp.
Here.
Dana Lazarus.
Here.
Jim Davison.
Here.
Carolyn Brown. I know she's online. Hoyt Prindle.
Present, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Hoyt Prindle. Joseph Citro.
I am here.
Christina Costa.
Here.
Matt Sink. Aya Yassin. Bill Roberts.
Present virtually.
Don Skelton. Ed Mrzyuski.
Here.
Artie Fryer.
Present.
Linda Eubanks. Michael Carter. Ilya Lashnov. Greg James. Chris Vella. Chris Gonzalez.
Here.
Dustin Johnson.
Here.
Ivy Adams.
Here.
Raymond Budd.
Oh, here.
And Stephen Jones.
Online.
Here.
We do have an in-person quorum. And Chair, just because I can't see when people come in, if you could let me know if somebody does come in, that way
I
I
will
can
do
make sure
that.
I get their attendance. Thank you.
You're absolutely prescient. Matt Sink walked in the room while you were in the middle of calling the roll.
Okay, I've got him. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, that takes us to public comment. You have 3 minutes at the podium, and who do we have here for public comment this evening? Don't be shy. I don't know, do we have a sign-up sheet?
We do not, so I think maybe we take the in first and then see if there's anyone virtual.
Okay, in room. Ari, I saw your hand up. You have 3 minutes.
Well, at least I get to get it over with. My name's Ari Fitzgerald. I'm here to comment on my feelings about the widening, the proposed widening between Hillsborough and Barris. I think it's a bad idea, but I'm not going to stop there because I think there's reasons why it's a bad idea. When you account for cars, studies show that when you account for cars, you get more cars. And I think nothing illustrates that better than the already widened section between the interchange, the downtown interchange and South Tampa Airport area. You can't move most of the day. It's very slow moving, and yet it is so wide. It's criminal use of precious land resources. We need more imaginative ways to move people. When you account for people, you get better people movement, and that's what we need. We need more imaginative transportation ideas, rapid transit, mass transit, not more roads, not wider roads, because it's not going to reduce traffic. It's going to increase traffic. It will bring more cars, not fewer cars.
Before you step away, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Yeah, Ari Fitzgerald. I thought I did do that.
All right, and you reside in what neighborhood?
Riverside Heights.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to say that the source I'm using for my data on this subject is not new, okay, but it is sure illustrated in modern times. It dates back to 1960, and it is The Death and Life of Great American Cities by J.J.
Thank you. All right, do we have anyone else here for public comment tonight? No? Anyone online?
If you're online, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll unmute or make a comment.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Morales, and I wanted to speak against the I-275 expansion. As someone that lived near the highway, lived in North Tampa, and really does value better, more efficient transportation alternatives, I think it is completely disgusting that our county leaders basically usurped the voices of the community in saying what their future should be. As every day we experience some of the hottest temperatures we've ever experienced on our planet, and we have to acknowledge that the transportation emissions that we are expending on having more and more cars in Hillsborough County is making us more and more vulnerable. I think it is really essential that our community voices actually stand up and speak out against this process and say that we need to invest in the transportation alternatives that HART and many other institutions have proposed to us. As the previous speaker spoke back to the life and death of great American cities, this is the future of our region that we are discussing when we're talking about how we get around. I've known many people that have already left Tampa and moved to cities like Atlanta, New York, Portland, and Seattle because they actually don't want to drive everywhere. They want a future where there's clean air, where people do not have to drive, especially in a region where we are one of the most dangerous regions for pedestrians and cyclists. They want better alternatives. And I think expanding the highway, which we do over and over again, and blowing out these neighborhoods, and this highway that was chosen specifically to destroy communities, specifically communities of color, we need to do better. And I think it is really important that the community here and the community that is listening and our county leaders actually address the needs of the community instead of saying FDOT have another hundreds and millions of dollars to do something that will not improve the lives of Tampa and Hillsborough County residents. So once again, we need to fight against the expansion of I-275, and we need to invest in the transportation alternatives like the HART BRT projects and the many other projects like the streetcar expansion that will actually make a difference in the lives of Hillsborough residents. Thank you.
Tatiana, before you step away, would you state your full name again, please, and spell your last name?
My full name is Tatiana Morales.
Could you spell, please? Actually, spell first and last for the record.
Tatiana Tatiana Morales.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else online?
Is there anyone else online? If you could raise your hand.
Hello, my name is Dave Coleman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dave. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm on the phone line. I'll be brief. Tatiana pretty much expressed what I would like to say. I live in North Tampa by Fletcher in Florida, and it's a daily occurrence that traffic backs up in the intersection. It's called blocking the box, and people cannot go when the light changes for them. And now you want to add more lanes and put more people, more vehicles onto 275, magnifying the issue. And that occurs at Fletcher and also other Florida and Nebraska intersections, I'm sure, across the whole city. If we rearrange roads, we need to do it smart. Not because somebody like Wastel, one individual, decides that they want to, give themselves another feather in their R cap. I'm just abhorred that one individual is bringing this forward. When I sat at a meeting at the Seminole Heights United Methodist Church in Allen Hall years back, and we had hundreds of people in there, and every one of them was adamantly against. We went along with the merge changes, but absolutely not on the on the north of Hillsborough 275 expansions. We need to do things wisely, and the FDOT is not going to be in the favor of Hillsborough County. They never have been. I moved here 25 years ago, and the appalling condition of Florida and Nebraska Avenue has never changed in 25 years. The FDOT is not on our side. They could care less, and they could care less about the death rate. And I have something else to say about 275. The speed limit in the city limits is 55 miles an hour. And I was literally told by somebody on the FDOT that they don't put up more signs, because I asked, why aren't there more signs? Why don't you advertise that it's 55 and slow people down? And they said, if we put more signs, we could legally give a ticket. That's what the FDOT said to me in one of their subsequent meetings after that Seminole Heights Methodist Church meeting. Now, I'm sickened that this should be shut down quickly and forcefully, and tell Wastel to go stick it. Thanks for letting me share. I don't know how to unmute.
Personalities in our comments.
Dave, would you state your full name for the record again and spell your last name?
David Coleman, David Coleman, and I don't know how to unmute. Or you'll unmute me? Mute me.
Okay. Do we have anyone else online? Anyone else in the room? Okay. Now I'll close public comment. Thank you all for your contribution. That takes us to chair report.
I did have a question of order, Chair. Dana had mentioned something to me earlier about follow-up from a public comment.
Yeah, it was Tim Keyport, who I did see come in virtually. So I was waiting to see if he was gonna give the comment himself, but he had asked if someone at the CAC could request a fact sheet, an updated fact sheet from FDOT about this segment from Hillsborough Avenue to Verus Avenue on I-275. The existing fact sheet and information on the TV Next website is outdated. It goes from MLK to Verus. I'm sure the financials of what this is going to cost us will need to be updated. As well as the scope and alignment, whatever else, is gonna be different. So I would just like to make that formal request that was, brought up to me by Tim from the Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association. I don't know how to if that can be a formal request to the TPO to pass on to the FDOT.
Well, I think you just made it.
Hmm?
So
Okay.
can you follow up with staff? We have a FDOT representative in the room who I know is perfectly capable of hearing and taking notes because he's been here before. Welcome back. Were there any questions about that request, sir?
No.
Okay.
Excuse me,
So
Chair.
Yes.
Dana, would you mind providing Tim's last name, please? Because he did sign off.
That's Tim
Yeah,
Keyport.
Can you hear me by any chance? This is Tim Keyport.
Oh, hi, Tim. Sorry. Yes, we can.
No, it's okay. I got bumped out, so I had to, like Dave Coleman, I had to call back in. So to Rick's point, Tim Keyport, Tim, last name Keeports. I am not a direct representative of Old Seminole Heights Neighborhood Association anymore. I was the former president. So I just wanted to clarify that. So just average citizen now. So my comments would be very simple. Everything Dana just said, absolutely. The neighborhoods are trying to pull together to counter this expansion plan. And so we're putting a fact sheet together. So to counter that on the other side, I think it would be prudent for FDOT to provide a fact sheet on justification for this ridiculous expansion. So I'll just leave it at that. I would highly encourage everyone to read the Creative Loafing article that recently came out. I'm sure all the board members have. And I would echo all the comments in there, very thorough and accurate depiction of what's going on, going back 10 plus years. To Dave's point, the neighborhood, not just Old Seminole Heights, but all of the immediate surrounding neighborhoods in the urban core, I would say almost to a person, are 100% against further expansion and taking of historic homes in the immediate area. And then the final thing that I'd like to just throw in, and then I'll go back when someone completely back on mute, is why we would have a justification of needing to expand the highway for hurricane evacuation. I understand that was the rationale that Mr. Wassel used for this proposal. And I would recommend that FDOT and emergency management be tasked to provide any documentation of any time ever in the past that the interstate's not been able to handle an evacuation volume, especially when all lanes of I-275, both north and south, are all turned to an evacuation mode, generally heading north. So if we could have that documentation requested as well, I think that that sort of puts a pin in this balloon that's been floated, that we've never had an issue of evacuation citizens all the way down to the south point of the peninsula down by McDill, especially with the increased and improved notification of incoming hurricanes with the new technology. So I think that that is a very poor to zero justification. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
All right, Tim. Thank you very much. Anyone else? And one last time, anybody else in the room? I don't think I saw anybody walk in. Anybody change their mind? Find their voice? Okay.
Hey, Rick, could I add my public comment or no, because I'm on the CAC, like related to some of the things that people said?
I would say, when you're a member of the committee, you're not eligible for public comment.
Okay. I mean,
we'll have opportunity to comment during the meeting.
Members' interests.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, that takes us to the chair's report. I have a little bit more to say today than usual, so I hope you'll bear with me. It's been 2 months since our last meeting, so few other things have happened. First of all, a recap of the regular TPO board meeting held on June the 12th, 2024. CAC recommendations fared well during that board meeting in June. If you'll recall, we accepted, I use that term in quotes, 3 reports during our June meeting. The vehicular traffic counts report, the Vision Zero street study report dealing with Sly and Waters Avenues, and the Access 2050 plan, public engagement. The board followed suit on all 3 of those acceptances. Then a recap of the TPO board public hearing that was held June 12 of 2024, not to be confused with the regular hearing or regular meeting of that date. The TIP was approved during that meeting. It was approved as amended by a vote of 13-2 with Council Hurtek and Council Clendenin voting no. There was an amendment, as noted. It was proposed by Commissioner Wastel, changing the status of I-275 north of Hillsborough to Bears to a capacity project. That amendment passed by a vote of 8-7. The opposition in that vote came from the 3 Tampa City Council members on the board and by 3 Board of County Commissioner members. Those being Myers, Maniscalco, and no, not Maniscalco. Myers, help me.
I do not have it in front of me, but I can get that information.
Okay.
Myers, excuse me, Mr. Chair, Myers, Kemp, and
Cohen.
Cohen. All right. I had a brain freeze. Thank you. You will recall that the CAC recommended an upward change in priorities for 3 projects in Table 2 of the TIP. Those were the premium transit from airport to downtown, Brightline multimodal connection, and the HART CSX study. The board did not act on that request, although it did receive favorable comment, in particular from Council Maniscalco. The board did ask staff to study these recommendations and come back this month for their August 14 meeting with a report on impacts. So our recommendations are still hanging fire, subject to further board action. And I understand we will be briefed on this during the meeting tonight under agenda item 9 alpha under unfinished business. As you read about the CAC, especially those of you that are new, you'll note that the Citizens Advisory Committee is here to, 1, provide citizen input to the board, and 2, to share what we learn here. And we are usually drinking from a fire hose, so we have a lot of information coming to us on a daily basis, not to mention what we hear during meetings, but to share what we learn with the community. And in that regard, I want to call out 2 of our members, Hoyt Prindle and Dana Lazarus, both of whom did op-eds over the course of the last month. Dana's appeared in Creative Loafing, and Hoyt's appeared in the Times. Hoyt's article is linked in your agenda package. I did not have the information on Dana's article in Creative Loafing in time for the agenda to go out, but I have asked staff to link that to each member of the CAC, so all of you have an opportunity to review. Hoyt's article, which appeared June 25, is titled "Widen 275 in Tampa and Watch the Traffic Jam Up." And Dana's article, which appeared August the 6th, it's an op-ed, "Latest Vote to Widen I-275 Angers Tampa Residents, Inspires Push for Better Public Transit." They're both very good reads. They certainly echo my thoughts on the subject, though everyone is entitled to their opinion. But I wanted everybody to be aware that your colleagues have been working a little extra hard to get information out to the community. Also, in your addendum, there is a link to a Tampa Times article. DeSantis launches website criticizing political agenda of Biden infrastructure policies. That Times article appeared June 27th. I won't get into that any further other than to say that you might find the read interesting. Again, it's linked in your agenda materials, and within the article, there is a link to the website. If you weren't aware that it's out there, you might want to review it. And I'm going to ask staff to put that particular item and issue on an agenda at a future meeting so we can discuss exactly what it means to us here and to the TPO generally. All right. Guess that does it for the chair's report. That takes us to our approval of minutes. We have 2 meeting minutes before us today. The first is June 5 of 2024, which was our regular meeting. And there was also a special meeting on June the 25th, which, if I remember correctly, was for the purpose of reviewing the Access 2050 plan.
Yes, the draft cost feasible scenarios.
Okay. You may recall that there was actually, we had this on the agenda and we had to defer because of time. And members were given an opportunity to this addendum meeting to get that briefing, and that was held on June the 25th. The minutes for both of those meetings, June 5 and June 25, are in your agenda package. Do I have a motion to approve the June 5, 2024 minutes?
I have discussion.
Well, I have a motion. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Ed Majerski moves to approve. Is there a second? Jim Davidson offers the second. Discussion, Dana?
This might be silly, but I could have sworn that when Joe Citro made the motion to move certain TIP projects up the TIP list, that there was more than just 2. Am I the only one who remembers that? And also, I just want to ask Joe, do you remember only 2 that we moved on? Because I could have sworn the streetcar project was included.
There were 4, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
There were 4. There was the Brightline Multimodal Hub, there was streetcar extension, and there was the premium transit from airport to downtown. And of course, Ms. Lazarus then wanted to add the CSX study, which was 10 years old, 12 years old. Yes.
I don't know if it was.
So there were 4 items.
For some reason, the streetcar extension didn't get picked up in the mix, unless I missed something. It's not in the minutes.
I will check on them. I'll listen to the recording and see what happened with the actual
No, I'm good.
recording.
Because I went to the TPO MPO board meeting the Wednesday following, and I specifically asked the board members to please at least look at our motion.
Step and roll.
All right.
It was a heated discussion that evening.
All right, so we have a motion to approve. We have a second, and we have a question related to the 3 or 4 items that were suggested for uptick on the priority list. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to make an amendment to add the fact that his 3rd project was not recorded in the minutes and never made it to the TPO meeting.
We can add an addendum to the minutes to include that.
Amendment addendum.
And we'll need to let the board know that that item was included, if in fact it was. I don't have an independent recollection of that item as part of our vote, to be honest. So I'm not doubting it.
Are these recorded?
They are.
So you can just check it out.
So we need to go back through it. As I recall, though, Joe, you may have a better memory of this, since I know you were sitting there in the room and you were very much attached to the motion. I don't recall the streetcar extension being mentioned by Guido Maniscalco as one of the items that he wanted to see advanced when that portion of the meeting took place. Maybe he did, I just don't remember.
Yeah,
So
he did.
you did?
And I, of course, I made my voice loud and clear. So
I'm sure you did.
at all
So-
over there.
All right, so I understand that this is going to be coming back to the board next week and they're going to be looking at those items. So let's just make sure that those items include the streetcar extension.
Yes.
And wherever it was, we recommended that it should go. I don't remember what his suggestion was.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I wanted to move it to the top 10. But of course, we were told that you can't put it that much higher. I think it only moved up 4 slots.
Okay, so it's included. There are 4 now rather than 3. There are 4 that have been recommended for advancement. I guess that's a better word than an uptick. Okay, all right. So again, the June 25th. Are you satisfied with that, Dave?
So we don't need a motion or an amendment?
No, we'll amend.
Then yeah, I'm satisfied.
The
Okay,
June 5
can you please state how this amendment is to be worded?
Well, we need to find that section of the minutes.
It was under item. It was under the TIP item. And there was a motion that Mr. Citro made on page 3 of the minutes towards the middle that has 2 projects, 64E4 Airport to Downtown Paving Transit and E5, the streetcar extension, and then under E2073, the Brightline multimodal connection. So that was 3. And then the 4th item is a separate motion from Dana Lazarus on page 3. So we do have 4 reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
All right, so the streetcar extension is here. All right. So Dana, I'm sorry, I guess when
Yeah, I
I,
could have sworn I saw 2, but
But we'll
Well, it's just
what's in the board.
yeah,
Move 2 projects
move 2 projects.
and then you added the third.
Right. We'll clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
okay, all right. Can we,
Are we amending Ed's motion to approve the minutes for June 5th at this time?
No.
I don't think so, no.
Okay, thank you.
It says 2.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion. Is there any other discussion on the June 5, 2024 minutes? If not, I'll call for a vote by acclamation. All in favor of approval, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, please note that as a unanimous acceptance. The next set of minutes is for June 25, 2024. Likewise, is there a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Dustin.
Second.
And Mr. Citro seconds. Any discussion on the June 25 minutes? I see none online. Is there anyone online? No? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous approval.
Mr. Chair, I
Christina
have a
Costa,
question.
Yes.
I didn't hear in the beginning of our meeting whether or not the people who are attending online are voting members tonight. If we are, in fact, if you could just slow your pace a little bit when you say aye and then any opposed, because we have to find the mute button and it just takes like 2 or 3 seconds. If there were to be anybody wanting to express opposition, we just need a little bit of a slower pace at that moment, if we're voting.
Okay. Well, for starters, everyone, whether you're here or virtual, has the opportunity to offer comment. People in the room vote. For tonight's meeting, I understand that Mr. Roberts has a special exemption. and is qualified to vote during this meeting. So, Bill, I guess I ought to give you just a little bit of extra time. Is there did you have anything else to add as far as comment or the vote?
No additional comment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'll try to be quick.
All right, I'll slow my roll just a bit. I apologize if I'm moving too fast for your mute buttons. All right, that takes us to our action items for the evening. We're at agenda item 7. This is the Access 2050 plan, draft cost feasible plan. Lauren Brooks of AECom is to present. And please note that this item is on the board's agenda for next week. Lauren, you with us?
Yes, sir. Can you all hear me?
Sure. Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Looks like it. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for having me this evening. This is kind of a recap of information you've already seen. We're putting all the pieces together at this point. I don't know why it's not advancing. Okay, there we go. As you all know, it's been a long road in the development of the long-range transportation plan. We embarked on this journey back in 2021 with the development of growth scenarios. We then went into preparing the needs assessment technical memoranda for the different investment programs of the LRTP, along with the revenue forecasts to determine reasonably available funding sources. We then tested different allocations of those funding sources to meet the needs of our plan through the cost feasible scenarios, which of course we presented to you back in June, the results of that exercise. And now we're here tonight to present the draft cost feasible plan, which will also be available to the public for review within this month and through September. And of course, all of this is in line with the adoption of the overarching Access 2050 plan, or the long-range transportation plan, in October. So this is just a recap of the ingredients that went into the development of the long-range transportation plan, and then ultimately our financial strategy of the plan, hence the cost feasible plan. Tonight, I'm just going to highlight quickly some of the environmental considerations that went into the development of the long-range transportation plan, and then we'll get into the draft cost feasible plan. So for highway projects, the LRTP is required to discuss potential impacts of those projects to environmental resources, and then strategies to mitigate for those impacts. And then also looking at broader opportunities for kind of like a holistic approach in terms of mitigating for transportation projects. A regional workshop was held back in May, inviting all these entities. And again, it was a regional workshop, and we'll get into some of the comments that were made. So on the left side of the screen, this is a snapshot of some of the comments that were provided through the various attendees of the workshop. One sentiment that frequently surfaced was the consideration of long-term resilience in the cost-benefit analysis of transportation projects. And I guess the argument was if we can have a holistic, comprehensive approach to mitigation for transportation projects, that will, in the long term, save costs for those projects. All right, we're now going to get into the cost feasible plan. Again, this slide may look familiar. It's recycled, but these are the different elements that went into preparing the cost feasible plan. As I mentioned before, various needs assessment technical memoranda were developed for the 5 investment programs that are part of the LRTP. Those came in front of you for approval. A revenue forecast was also developed. We then, like I said, tested the allocations of different funding through these scenarios to determine what needs we could afford with those available revenues, and then also to better understand financial trade-offs with those allocations. We, of course, received input from the public, from you all, the various committees, and then the board, and we were able to select a preferred scenario, and then that guided us into developing the cost feasible plan. So these are the 9 different scenarios that were explored as part of the scenario exercise, if you will. We looked at 2 low funding scenarios, which only accounted for existing revenues that are available. And then the high funding scenarios accounted for, we actually looked at 4 potential sources that could be added. 3 of those sources were the renewals of the community investment tax, the first local option fuel tax, and the 9th cent fuel tax. We also looked at accounting for the addition of the 5-cent second local option fuel tax, which would be a new tax. Per direction received from, from the various committees and the board, Scenario 2 was selected as the preferred scenario. Basically, this scenario, again, it accounts for existing revenue sources and 3 potential revenue sources, because we were also directed to exclude the second local option fuel tax, as this seemed less likely to move forward with the renewals of the other 3 taxes during the same time frame. Based on our preferred scenario, these are the different revenues, available revenues, broken out by the funding source. And then this is how we are going to allocate across the different investment programs with these available revenues. And again, Scenario 2 not only included the existing revenue sources and those 3 potential local sources, but it also followed the trend spending pattern. So the local investments are largely concentrated on the Good Repair and Resilience Investment Program. So that's the red piece of the arch, if you will. And then because FDOT has the largest pot of funding, you can see over here on the left, the green and yellow bars. That's why the major projects is also composes a large piece of the funding. This is just a quick reminder of the different types of investment programs and those project types that fall under the investment programs. So again, Good Repair and Resilience, bridge maintenance, stormwater and drainage improvements. Vision Zero is safety enhancements. Smart Cities is really more on the technology side to address traffic operations, if you will. Real Choices When Not Driving pertains to bus services and dedicated trails, like in this picture. And then, of course, major projects are kind of those large scale, high dollar projects pertaining to, road capacity improvement projects and also fixed guideway transit projects, because those particular projects require their own right of way. So I just wanted to note that major projects, in terms of the 5 investment programs, it's different in the sense that the LRTP requires major projects to be listed out and show potential funding sources associated with those projects. So we'll kind of focus on the major projects piece within this presentation. But on the left side of the screen is kind of a breakout of how the funds were allocated across the different project types that compose the major projects investment program. Again, DOT has the largest pot of funding. So, highway projects are largely funded because of the DOT sources. It's also important to note that to prioritize major projects, there were a series of metrics that were accounted for. These were derived to serve as objective and quantitative, or to, I guess, seek objective and quantitative results. So there isn't any bias regarding these particular projects. And again, the intent for the prioritization process was to address those roadways that had the highest level of need, but then also to optimize the different investments to get the biggest bang for our buck, so to speak. So these are the different strategic intermodal system highway projects that came directly from FDOT's SIS cost feasible plan that was recently adopted in July. Of course, this plan includes the managed lanes on the various interstates within our area, other capacity improvement projects, and then there were several interchange modification projects also included. These are the non-SIS state roadway projects that also came from FDOT. Just to orient you, the solid red lines on the map represent those projects that are cost feasible, meaning all phases of that particular project are funded, where the dashed lines pertain to those projects that either partially funded or unfunded. Again, a lot of these are concentrated over in the Plant City area, kind of northeast Hillsborough County. These are the local roadway projects that were derived from the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. These projects were either noted as cost feasible and never advanced, or they were part of the candidate local roadway project list of the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. Again, the symbology is the same. Those lines that are solid represent cost feasible projects, so the phases are fully funded, whereas the dashed lines represent those projects that have partial funding or are completely unfunded. And then similar to the local roadway projects, these are the fixed guideway transit projects that were also largely derived from the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan that never advanced. Unfortunately, most of these are not funded. They're all candidate projects, if you will. And that's really due to their price tag. They're super expensive to build. The Tampa Arterial Bus Rapid Transit Project does have funding for design and right-of-way allocated, but there is no funding for construction. So I mentioned the major projects investment program is different from the other projects. I'm sorry, is there a question? Oh, okay. So these are the other 4 investment programs of the LRTP. And again, the LRTP is based on performance. So really all of the investment programs and those needs assessment technical memoranda were developed to meet different performance measures. And, these are some of the performance measures that can be met with existing dollars following our existing trend spending pattern, if you will. So I wanted to note that the TPO's role is not really to administer funds. Their role is really to kind of serve as a liaison, bringing all agency partners together to collectively identify needs, prioritize projects, and then, of course, communicate a clear shared transportation vision with project priorities. So I mentioned before that right now we're sharing the draft cost feasible plan with the committees. The public will be able to view this plan as well. We're seeking input, again, with the goal to have the overall long-range transportation plan adopted in October. But of course, the long-range transportation plan is a dynamic, ever-evolving plan. So after the plan is adopted, the TPO will work with the local agency partners, continue to work with the committees to make sure that local priorities are being reflected and are funded. So, think of what's listed in the LRTP as, again, it's a vision, it's high level, it's to try to help communicate priorities, make sure we're all on the same page. But again, things can change. It's not set in stone. So tonight we ask that you recommend that the TPO board accept the draft cost feasible plan. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you. Is there or are there any questions for Lauren? Jim, did I see your hand up?
Yeah.
Dr. Davis.
Lauren, one of my biggest peeves is there is no comparison in what we are doing here to what occurred 5 years ago to the 2045 plan. So there's no frame of reference. We're just sitting here taking a picture in time. I think if you look back, you said the non-SIS funding was what, $536 million? 5 years ago, it was over 2 billion. What happened?
Again, this is based on the FDOT 2050 revenue forecast handbook. We'll have to ask FDOT.
But we're not even able to ask FDOT what happened to $2 billion in non-SIS funding. And this has been my pet peeve right from the beginning. We are dealing with $9 billion at least in reduced spending in the current trend than what we had just 5 years ago. And nobody ever explained why. Just disappeared. And we're actually 5 years further out, and inflation and revenue streams locally, sales tax should be going up. And they are. They're going to go up massively. So there's no frame of reference to look back to compare the last. This is supposed to be an ongoing thing, not just pictures in time. There's no trending. There's no anything. It's just a picture in time. And this is what we're going to send the federal government. Hopefully that they'll give us the money because we came in under our cost constraint. But it's not going to mean anything because it's not real.
Is there something that you're requesting from the?
Yeah, I would like to see a comparison done in the next couple of weeks, before October, so that this board, this committee has a chance to look at it and compare and ask questions as to why is it so much different than the 2045 plan? Even leaving the sales tax out of it, why is the current trend on this plan so much different than the current trend from 5 years ago? That shouldn't have happened.
Well, there's a few things that I know off the top of my head that I can mention. FDOT changed programs. They changed formulas. So what was in the 2045 FDOT revenue forecast handbook and how they approached the allocations to the different jurisdictions is different than what is in the 2050 FDOT revenue forecast handbook. So again, that's something we don't have control over. It's just different approaches. So I know that's one aspect. I don't know if Elizabeth wants to.
Yeah, and that's what we would like to ask FDOT. Why was there such a huge discrepancy in your revenue forecasting over a 5 year period? The legislature hasn't come out and said, we're gonna reduce your funding by $2 billion for non-SIS. So where do we go?
All right, is that's
That's
your
my
question? All right, and Lauren, have you
Mhm.
noted the question sufficiently for follow-up?
Yes, so Mr. Davison, you want a comparison of the revenues between
revenues-
2045 and 2050? Sorry.
Yes, then that would give us some.
Okay.
It would put us in some context anyway, between what they promised us 5 years ago and what they're promising us now.
Okay,
Sure.
good, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the left side of the room?
Should I be able to also assist, or do you want to wait till the end?
Let's wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions from the left side of the room? Right side of the room, Ed?
Yeah, I would just suggest, over the long run, DOT has formulas that allocate money to districts, sort of over the long run. But when you have a huge project like the West Shore Interchange, Tampa gets like this huge pile of money for a few years. 10 years ago, Fort Lauderdale was getting huge piles of money. So, I mean, over the long run, and I don't know, Brian can certify whether I'm being truthful or not, but I think over the long run, DOT tries to sort of balance things out based on some formula, but on a shorter term basis, you can't, because something like the West Shore Interchange is such a huge project. But that's not going to be that's going to be done.
And that's I guess.
I think that may be part of the explanation.
Okay. Ed, did you have any comment or question for the presenter?
I did.
No, Ed.
Oh, sorry.
Did you have-
I would just say, I was really pleased with the treatment of alternative funding scenarios, because I think too often we do long-range plans that are like fixed thing. And I think anytime as you're doing that, you can consider alternative futures. You've got a leg up on something that's going to happen that you didn't anticipate. So I think that was really, really well done. I would say a very minor Scribner's mistake, I think, on page 6 under the paratransit numbers. I think the numbers for the base and the performance are reversed.
Okay, we will take a look at that.
Got that, Lauren? All right. And for the record, Ed, you just offhandedly made reference to Brian. That's Brian Hunter from the Florida Department of Transportation, who's sitting in the gallery for purposes of the record. Avia, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I just want to clarify, when you get the information for Dr. Davidson, are you going to include the formulas, not just what happened to the money? Like the actual formulas that were used in the past and down?
Nice to
I
understand.
just want to make sure that that was distinct, because I heard about where the money is, but not necessarily referencing the formula then and what now.
Sure,
All right.
we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Good idea.
Okay, any other questions from the right side of the room here? Okay, going virtual. Any hands up? Mr. Roberts, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lauren, good presentation. Following up on the discussion at the committee here a few minutes ago, I noticed in one of your slides that the rail connection to the peninsula down to the old Port Tampa was on a plan at one time, and you said that plan has been discarded, or at least was phased out. How would this committee proceed to help accelerate either that particular project or any of the other 3 that were the subject of our discussion? Any suggestions on what the committee can do? Thank you.
Elizabeth, you want to take?
Lauren, I'll take that.
Take
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Thanks, Bill. So I guess the first idea that jumps off the top of my head is the Unified Planning Work Program was presented a few months ago. That's when we kind of take all of the study requests. So when that comes back up, or maybe through a special request through CAC liaison Sarah, something to get that in either the TPO's work program to do something or to bring it up with partners. I think for all of these, Heart would need to play an important role, and I think we all know how under-resourced they are. So whether that's a suggestion is getting some funding for a study or having staff coordinate to see what other resources might be available. And Sarah may have some other ideas too.
Sure. For planning studies, one thing we can do is if we hear from the CAC, the Unified Planning Work Program, which Elizabeth mentioned that you saw earlier this year, has projects listed in it, and it also has the ability to have projects fall under different categories. So one thing we do is we evaluate how we're doing on our planning studies. We share example projects with you at that time, and some of them are contingent on partnerships and if we're able to proceed with them. So as we hear from you, this committee, about potential planning projects, we do take note of that. And if it falls within something we're allowed to do within the existing Unified Planning Work Program, and if there is funding available, that is something we are considering. So you can just let us know if we can't do all of them, and some of them might require revisions to the Unified Planning Work Program, but it is something we take note of as funding is available, because as we all know, sometimes there are changes in the projects that we're able to do based on partnerships or funding or just the timing of different things.
Bill, does that satisfy your inquiry?
Yes, I wanted to raise the issue partly out of curiosity for the 4 projects we have chosen to advance, and also hopefully as a way for our newer members to get a better understanding of the process. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other hands up online? Anybody?
I do not see any other hands raised at this time in online.
Okay, I'm trying to give everybody time to hit their mute button. No? Okay, we're back in the room. Dana Lazarus.
Perfect, okay. Because I have a follow-up to Bill. If we could go back to that screen. It's there, it's just behind. Okay, so it says for the Tampa Arterial Bus Rapid Transit Project, that's the Heart Arterial BRT project, which is on Tampa, Florida, up to Fowler and down Fowler. I'm just making sure that's what it is. I mean, that's what it seems to be, right? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So it says construction phase not funded, but FDOT can and does fund construction. They don't fund operations except for, I think it's 3 years for new projects, but they will fund construction. And they can. I don't see, if it's prioritized. In addition, I know that Heart also has won some grants to study their station locations and like the hub, a hub on Sly and Waters, for example, which as a member interest, I'm really interested in that potential TOD hub location for this Heart Bus Rapid Transit project, and even a potential regional transit connector. But anyways, so I don't understand why it couldn't be. I don't really know how to word this, because even after like 10 years, I'm not fully understanding how this works. But why can't we include it as a priority project? I guess I don't understand why some other projects say that there's potential revenue funds to use for them, but not this one. Especially since the funds have to be applied for. They have to be prioritized in upcoming transportation improvement programs. I'd really like to see this, especially I think it was on our, LRTP survey with a lot of support. So why, isn't that in our cost feasible?
So unfortunately, and this is what I presented on back in June, the revenue sources that are available, not basically not all revenue sources can be used for all types of projects. The revenue sources have their own constraints. They can only be used for eligible types of projects. So FDOT does have allocations to transit that they provide, but that allocation is so small compared to the price tag of these projects that we just can't afford all phases. So I don't know if Elizabeth wants to add anything.
No, and I guess the thing I would add is that what this means, showing arterial BRT mostly funded, that still keeps it eligible for federal discretionary grants. If things change in the next 5 years, we can hopefully move it into fully cost feasible. Wanted to be very clear about what it means to be in and out of the cost feasible plan.
Great
Okay,
point, Elizabeth. Thank you.
So it's still in the LRTP
Yes.
for potential funding. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions in the room, right or left? Right? Any other questions or comments online? No hands up? Okay, can I have the ask slide back up, please?
Yes, sir.
All right, the recommended action is to recommend that the TPO board accept the Access 2050 plan draft cost feasible plan. Is there an enabling motion?
Make a motion.
Stephen Hollenkamp makes the motion. Is there a second? Avia, am I pronouncing that correctly? Right.
Yeah.
Avia seconds. Right? We have a motion, we have a second. Is there a discussion?
Yeah, I can't, in good conscience, vote to accept a draft that leaves so many questions that I have. Otherwise, we're just going through the same motions over and over again. If the state, I don't understand how the state can just pull back billions of dollars in a formula that they sent to the federal government 5 years ago to show them that this was going to be our long-range transportation plan. And then 4 years later saying, we got a new formula. We took back $9 billion. And with the local revenues, 2 to 3 billion. There has to be more consistency. Otherwise, it's not a plan. Okay. So I won't be supporting.
All right. Is any other comment on the motion? In the room? See no hands up. Online? Any hands up? Okay. One last time in the room. Dana?
I also feel like I don't have enough information. I'm gonna repeat what I heard the TPO board say when we asked them to move up some well-studied projects on the tip list, that I'm confused. I don't feel like I have enough data and information about a cost feasible plan and how it relates to the transportation improvement program, where the money comes from, how it gets in there. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I need to read the draft better or something. But I am conflicted of whether or not I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay, well, we'll find out very shortly.
Right.
All right, that said, assuming there are no other questions or comments on the motion in the room or online. Gail, would you please call the roll?
Rick Fernandez,
No.
Stephen Hollenkamp,
Yes.
Dana Lazarus,
No.
Jim Davison,
No.
Carol, I'm sorry. Joseph Citro,
No.
Matt Sink,
No.
Bill Roberts,
Yes.
Ed Mrzewski,
Yes.
Chris Gonzalez,
Yes.
Dustin Johnson,
No.
Ivia Adams,
No.
Stephen Jones.
Yes.
Have I missed anybody in the room?
Don't believe so. And you got Bill Roberts virtually, correct?
I did, and the
Okay.
motion fails 7-5.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Nothing
Thank you.
personal. All right, that takes us to item B of action items. Transit asset management targets. Connor McDonald. And this is on the board agenda for next week.
Good evening, I'm Connor. I'm here to present the transit asset management targets. Give me just a second.
Keep your voice up if you would, Connor.
Absolutely. All right, can everyone see that and everyone see it online as well?
We can see it.
Perfect. Connor Trios McConnell, CBO staff, I'm here to present the transit asset management targets. So we're fresh on performance measures, which the transit asset management targets are of. It's required by MPOs that have been out 21 legislation and renewed under the FAST Act. The goal is to create a streamlined, performance-based and multimodal program to address the many challenges facing the U.S. transportation system. There are 6 categories of targets, including safety, people and bridge condition, travel time reliability, transit safety, and transit asset management is one of those. So transit agencies receiving federal funds must submit these targets annually, and MPOs must report targets for every long-range transportation plan update. Since here we are with the LRC update, updating these targets as well. There are several categories of the TAM targets. So equipment is measured, it's non-revenue support service and maintenance vehicles. And the measure is the percentage of non-revenue vehicles that have met or exceeded their useful life benchmark. And those useful life benchmarks, they're to derive from FDA's transit economic requirements model. The term model estimates the age at which each vehicle types would enter the good repair backlog or have a rating of 2.5 or below the turn scale. So for buses, this is 14 years. For automobiles, it's 8 years. For cutaways, which is you often see those in transportation disadvantaged buses, for kind of half buses. And for streetcars, it's 30. For infrastructure, the percentage of track segments by mode performance restrictions is how that's measured. In facilities, it's the percentage rated below the condition 3 on the terms. So equipment, again, the percentage of non-revenue vehicles that have met or exceeded their useful life benchmark. 2 measures are automobiles and trucks and other rubber tire vehicles. We're recommending adopting parts targets they set this year to 72.97% and 38.71% respectively. The rolling stock, which is you would imagine, may imagine first we think of transit assets. For buses, recommending a target of 28.4 as to useful life benchmark. Cutaways 30.59%, and light rail vehicle at 11.11%. Facilities, meaning facilities rated below condition 3 on the term scale. For passenger and parking facilities, on parking rides, a target of 10%, and administrative and maintenance facilities 20%. For infrastructure, this is track segments by mode performance restrictions. So the streetcar will be this infrastructure measure. And there are 0 performance restrictions, so we're aiming to that target. So the key points I wanted to leave you with, equipment in stock is often purchased in large quantities. So you'll see those percentages higher than before because those they purchase buses in a large quantity. And after 8 to 15 years, those buses will meet their useful life benchmark. And that's where a greater number will show. CPO, the CPO staff will be required to show an investment in the long-range transportation plan. And the cost efficiency plan will assist in meeting these targets. So this will be in the form, it'll actually be in the document itself. And an effective investment is needed, especially regarding heavy facilities, which would be part of this facilities. And still not purchase your time. Here would be the recommended targets on the list. And the recommended action today is to adopt the transit asset management targets set by ours. With that, I'll take your comments and questions.
All right, any comments or questions? Left side of the room, Dana?
Connor, I don't think I understand the targets. Can you go back to any of them really?
Yeah.
So 2022 target that was the target in like 2018 or something, like back for the last.
So 2020, thank you for asking, 'cause that will help me clarify in the future. The 2022 target is when that target was set. So they set that every year. The transit agency would renew it every year. And then the MPO was required to set that with the LRT update.
So what this is showing is that they exceeded their target because the actual condition is 22.73% and they were targeting 10%?
I believe so.
It says
Jim
percentage,
Davison, you recognize?
percentage of facilities rated below condition. 3 on the term scale. Is that below 3? Is that good or bad?
So the higher the number of the term scale would be, the higher the condition. So the lower condition. So
The worse it is.
would be worse.
So actually 22.7% condition in 2022 exceeded the target of 10%.
Right.
So things were worse than what they had targeted.
Oh,
Dana,
We want the number, what's the number low?
Dana, were you done?
sure.
Yes?
Yeah.
Jim, you're done? Next
Yeah, I
question.
think that this is a great report and it shows what to do. We have to be more inventive. I mean, it's gonna take everything, and maintenance of the transit stuff has to be as prioritized as the roads.
Questions or comments from the left side here? Or to the right, Ed?
Yeah, can you slide down to the summary that's got the recommended targets for all of them?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right there. So we're saying that in 2022, 14.29% of trucks were really should have been retired already, and we're recommending that should be 38%. I mean, it seems like we're recommending things that are much worse than the current condition, especially when it comes to like buses. I mean, poor people that are out there waiting for the bus. We're saying that we're going to accept that 28% of the vehicles are substandard. I mean, I don't get it.
So that is what that means. You're absolutely correct in that evaluation of it. Hart sets these targets, so based off of when their buses and the trucks and other rubber tire vehicles will meet that useful life benchmark, they purchase them at a great number. So in the next years, the percentage of those assets will reach that useful life benchmark.
Ed, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the answer, but I understand the answer.
Okay, I use the term advisedly. Are you satisfied? So
Satisfied
for
with
now,
the answer.
for now, okay. Any other questions or comments here on the right side of the room? Justin?
Thank you, Chair. So my questions regarding this is, so this is basically what Hart's investment is and what the recommendation for replacement. Now, I understand the percentages, but can we look at is there any way of getting numbers and seeing what that number is going to be and what the projection is come 2050 or that long range, what their number projections are, and seeing what that difference in percentage is? Because I think what Ed's referring back to, I mean, yeah, they may be out of date, old, But if they're still functional at that time, I mean, I've lived in foreign countries and you won't believe what people use to transport people around. I mean, granted, yeah, they're probably not the safest things, but I mean, getting from point A to point B, I don't think people really care how they get there as long as they can get there, right? So if we're here to try and recommend and save money and look at cost factoring ways, it'd be nice to say, okay, what are these conditions? What are these conditions? 3 and below, what dictates that it's a 3? What dictates a 2? What dictates a 1? I mean, if it's just like, okay, the seat's torn, maybe it's cheaper to repair the seat than it is to buy a brand new bus. But if all the wheels have fallen off, the engine's blown, okay, that's a different story. I just like to see more information, because it'd be helpful in recommendations on this.
I absolutely can provide those numbers. I would gather them from ours, I don't have them off the top of my head. And also provide more information on what the turn scale means, actual things of that, so you can understand, so we don't understand what they're for. And I can provide that in the form that I did recently with the statement system report, if that's helpful, and document explaining more information.
Right, which, what Connor's mentioning, we emailed out a document with more information, so we could do that again or provide it in the agenda packet.
Okay. And Dustin, I apologize. I got your first name wrong and it probably won't be the last time, but
Don't worry,
I'll try to do better.
just remember the golfer, you'll get it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments in the room here on the right side? Nope. All right, we're up on the wall, virtual. Any hands up?
Christine?
Christina Costa, you recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize for the background noise. I've been attending a conference this week, so that's what you're hearing. Connor, I wonder if you could go back to the slide that showed 20, I think it was 2022, 24, and then 2050 for long range. And yeah, that one. Wait, no. The slide that Mr. Davidson was remarking on, we had a 2022 target of 10%, and the 2020, there we go, that's the one. I'm just wondering if you have any insights. It seems like we have either poorly forecasted or are missing the mark on the condition is deteriorating more quickly than what the targets accommodated. And I wondered why we would go back, or why Hart would go back to a 2050 LRTP 10% when the 10% was not realistic, just up until 2022.
Absolutely. So I don't have the details on the passenger and parking facilities. I imagine that those targets were based off of future investment in close years in the next 5 years. And that's why they would set the target at 10%, but I can absolutely coordinate with Hart and get you answers.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments online? Hands, anybody see hands?
See, no, a lot of hands raised online.
Okay, one last swing in the room. Any other questions or comments in the room?
I just got one more, Chair.
Yes, sir.
So under the infrastructure slide you have there, talking about streetcar rail. Now, isn't the rail car that goes between Ybor City and downtown Tampa, is that run by Hart? Is that run by somebody else?
It's run by Hart.
So my question is, why are they recommending 0% all the way for long range planning? I would figure between now and 2050, 25 years, you're gonna have to replace some sort of rail.
Right, so maybe there's a little confusion on what the 2050 LSP recommended target is. That is, it's what will go in our 2050 plan. It's updated in the next 5 years when we do the 2055. So it's not a target set for 2050, it's a target set for the next 9 years.
So then we're basically recommending that we don't invest at all in rail whatsoever in this region.
So the streetcar rail, these numbers are based off of what is existing. So it is that streetcar from downtown to Ybor. Whether there's streetcar in the future in the next 5 years, I don't think they consider that in predicting these numbers and these targets.
Well, I think there's an issue with that because the fact that we're trying to look at, your comments from the community about, public transportation, too many cars on the road, yet there's no planning, no forward-looking advancement on this stuff. We're just gonna keep kicking the can down the road, shooting ourselves in the foot. I mean, the numbers show people aren't moving out of Tampa, they keep moving in. If not, my house wouldn't be, double, triple price of what it was from the time I bought it. I've lived here for 10 years. So to me, the one problem is we got to get our agencies start forward thinking, looking on this stuff. I mean, you just can't. I understand you have day-to-day nature of the business, but if we're forward looking. You also got to project other things. You got to start planning for stuff down the road. If not, then to me, I feel like our time here is we're just blowing in the breeze, I guess.
If I may clarify, the performance measure that is listed here is percent of track segments with performance restrictions. So it is focused on that component of it. But
Track that's not usable then is what you're saying, or?
That's how I understand it.
yes, it's how much of the track is not usable of what's out there, regardless of what's out there today or in 2050s, how much is anticipated not to be used.
Now, does that include just what Hart is utilizing, or is that including what also, who is it, CSX or whoever the major rail company is? Because I mean, there's track out there all over the place around here when.
It's for what rail is being used for the streetcar, which is the Hart service.
All right, any other questions or comments here in the room? Dana?
I would just request for future presentations like this and for the other performance measures that we're probably going to see, just a little more explanation of what we're looking at. Like for each column and each row. We're having to go back and kind of ask for clarification on each thing. So if you just include it in your presentation next time.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, with an eye toward brevity. Dr. Davis.
Just as looking at that graph there, like roadways they want them repaved if they're busy every 10 to 17 years, 25 years. Is there anything that you can compare that to track? Because that's what you're talking about here is usable track. Is there a length of time where the track should be replaced?
I'm unsure, but I can definitely coordinate with you.
Right, Ed?
Yeah, I just was gonna comment, several meetings ago, we made a strong request that if somebody's got a project in front of us, they have a representative here that can answer the questions. I would just point that out and express my displeasure that Hart has not done that.
So noted. Any other questions or comments in the room? One more swing online.
Bill has his hand raised.
Bill Roberts, you're recognized.
Thank you. Real quickly, in the interest of brevity, I'm going to echo Ed's comment. And I'm going to add to that once more, Hart has submitted to us a difficult to understand report and asking for a recommendation. I will not be supporting a motion to recommend this to the TPO board. Thank you.
Okay, anything else online? Okay, if not, can I have the ask slide back up again?
What's that?
That would be ask, A-S-K. Sure you. All right. Recommended action, adopt the transit asset management targets, TAM, set by Hart. Is there an enabling motion?
So moved.
Dana Lazarus makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Stephen Hollenkamp offers the second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, see no discussion in the room. Is there any discussion on the motion online? Going once, going twice. Check your mute buttons. No? Okay, Gail, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Rick Fernandez,
No.
Stephen Hollenkamp,
Yes.
Dana Lazarus,
No.
Jim Davison,
No.
Joseph Citro,
I'm going to vote yes, but I have to explain the reason why I'm voting yes. This is good, bad, or indifferent, or the bottom of the barrel. This is the only public mass transportation that we have. I don't want to see anything reflect negatively, especially when they're going through so many different issues right now, especially with employment employees. So I regretfully am going to vote yes.
Okay.
Matt
Continue the
Fink,
roll, please. No.
Bill Roberts,
No.
Ed Majewski,
No.
Chris Gonzalez,
Yes.
Dustin Johnson,
No.
Ivia Adams,
No.
Stephen Jones.
No.
Motion fails 9-3.
Okay, thank you. Connor, thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Before we go on, two things. One, those of you who've been around a minute know that I try to get these meetings adjourned at 8 o'clock. We had public comment today, which is unusual for us, and I certainly encourage it and embrace it, but we're running a little bit behind schedule. So my question now is, of those of you in the room that are helping us to make up quorum, is there anyone who will not be able to stick around beyond 8 o'clock to maintain quorum for us? There's no shame in it. You made plans, you made plans, but does anybody need to get out of here at 8 o'clock? I don't see any hands up. Bill, are you okay?
I will probably not stay with you much after 8 o'clock, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Hey, I don't know for a fact that you even count for quorum. I know you get to vote, but I'm not sure if you count for quorum under the rules. Does he?
I don't think I do.
I don't believe he does.
Okay, so we need 7 people in the room for anybody that's not familiar. Okay, thank you all. So we'll get at it as fast as we can, but I just don't want you to hold me to 8 o'clock. Okay, that's the last of our action items. That moves us now into status reports. The first of which is Regional Competitive Report by Lucia Ferris of Tampa Bay Partnership. And as I understand it, this is a status report that was requested by a CAC member, I think by Christina Costa, if I understand correctly. So thank you for that follow-up. Do we have Lucia here?
She is on.
Yes,
All right, Lucia, go for it.
thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I am joined today by my colleague Shannon Callahar, our Senior Director of Strategic Communications, and I'm Dr. Lucia Ferris, the Senior Director of Research Analytics and Public Policy at the Tampa Bay Partnership. So to start with a little background on the partnership, we're a coalition of the region's top employers working together to improve the lives of all Tampa Bay residents. When we look at the investors of the partnership, these are the largest employers of the Tampa Bay region. The Tampa Bay Partnership deploys its influence strategically, leveraging the strengths of the investors to advance critical focus areas such as housing affordability, workforce development, early learning, to impact policy and improve economic prosperity for the region. When you look at the region that we classify as Tampa Bay, we are looking at an 8-county region. So it goes from Citrus County in the north to Sarasota County in the south and out to Polk County in the east. So moving right to the data, every year we produce the Regional Competitiveness Report. The 2024 report is the data that you will be seeing here. So we're going to jump with some really good news in terms of our comparison set. So we compare Tampa Bay, the aggregated 8-county region, across 19 other peer and aspirational markets across the country. So when you see our rankings on the tiles in the slides, those rankings are across those 19 other communities, and you will have Tampa Bay's number bolded. If it is in green, that means our value improved from the previous year. If it's in red, it worsened, and if it's in black, there was no change. The United States average will be below the Tampa Bay figure, and then the top performing community will have a star right next to it. So you can see, for example, that with the net migration rate, Tampa Bay was ranked number 1 across those 20 communities that we track year over year. And so that's bringing us with a net migration rate of 2.8%. We were first last year, we're first again this year. If you visit us at stateoftheregion.com, you can drill down on any of these indicators at the county level. So if you're interested in knowing Hillsborough specific data, you can find it there, but we did put the Hillsborough County figure of 1.7% for net migration for the county. When we're looking at the number of residents that are moving to the area because of the attractiveness of our region, and there's several factors tied to this. We have a very business-friendly economic climate. We have great weather for the most part when we're not dealing with hurricanes. We have relatively low crime rates. We are tied first place for the lowest crime rates in our competitive set. You can see why we're attractive. Bringing in so many residents is also leading to some affordability concerns, and our average wages are not keeping pace. What you can see from this slide,
Dr. Ferris, what you hearing you, can you turn your camera off, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So what you can see here is the average wages for Tampa Bay are about $60,843. So that is below the United States average of just around $70,000 a year. No surprise there that the top performing community of the ones we track is Seattle. So very high average wages in Seattle, over $100,000 a year. When you look at our rankings, though, you're looking at bottom of the set. So we're 18th in our comparison set, and we've broken them down here by county. So you can see that Hillsborough has the highest average wage of the 8 counties we track at $68,438. Tying average wages to housing and transportation affordability. So we've put these 2 budget expenditures together into one metric. What this is showing you is that the average household spends about 57% of their income on housing and transportation combined. So to put this into context, that's 57 cents of every dollar earned spent on housing and transportation before even a bite of food is consumed. You can see that we are above the United States average. And in terms of our ranking with the comparison set, which you can see listed here, the entire national comparison set, we are at the bottom of the pack in 18th place. I want to highlight here that top place goes to Minneapolis, St. Paul, where their residents are still spending over 50% on housing and transportation, but we are closer to that 60% mark. When we break out just housing expenditures and separate that out from transportation, you can see that housing expenditures alone account for 42 cents, close to 43 cents of every dollar earned. So again, same ranking, we're finding ourselves at the bottom of the comparison set, and we are here slightly above the United States average. When we look at the trends in housing prices, so this is from June 2022 to June 2023, in that time period, we did see that housing prices for existing home sales fell by 3.46%, which is what we saw across most metro areas. There were only a few that saw a slight increase, but for the most part, we saw that contraction. Interestingly is the 2 years previous to that, our housing prices grew by over 20% year over year in each of those years. Looking at the newer numbers coming in from June 2024, we see that housing prices year over year are relatively flat. When we look at affordability tied to average wages, tied to housing prices, we can better understand how some of our households are struggling to make ends meet in Tampa Bay. So one very important statistic that we track is what we call the financial instability rate, which is the ALICE plus poverty rate. ALICE households are people that are employed and they're earning more than the federal poverty level. That's why they're not captured in that poverty rate, but they are not earning enough to meet their basic needs. This is a statistic produced by the United Way, United for ALICE. And you can see that in that statistic, we actually fell. That's why the Tampa Bay number is in red. That means that we actually have a greater percentage of families that are falling within this instability of being able to meet their basic needs. And we are in 19th place in our comparison set. Poverty rates, so just looking at the percentage of families that fall below the poverty line, you can see that both the poverty rate and the youth poverty rate improved, but the full-time worker poverty rate actually worsened. So we are seeing that this is tying very closely into those increased obstacles for the general working population in terms of overall cost of living and transportation, and those issues tied to getting themselves and their children, getting themselves to work and their children to daycare. When we look at infrastructure specifically, we track 10 indicators tied to transportation and infrastructure. 8 of those 10 indicators, we fall at the bottom of the comparison set. So this is very concerning for us because, again, housing affordability and transportation are intrinsically linked together in terms of having access to quality jobs and being able to work in some of our more urban core city centers. Of the 2 that weren't in the bottom of the pack, you can see that that is pavement condition is rated fair or good, and annual hours lost to congestion. We rank 8 out of 20 there. So breaking some of those infrastructure metrics into some of the most talked about issues tonight, we're talking about transportation and our highways and getting people access to alternative modes of transportation. You can see that commute times in Tampa Bay worsened. So the average commute time in minutes is 28 minutes, 36 seconds. But if you look at it broken down by county, you can see that the further out you go from the urban core of Tampa Bay, those commute times get worse. So this goes in line with the trend that we're seeing much higher net migration to the outlying counties. So you saw the 1.7% net migration for Hillsborough County. Pasco County, for example, had a 4.36% net migration rate. So we're seeing 3-4 times the net migration rate to those outlying counties than you're seeing in Hillsborough. So consequently, for those commuting back into Tampa, you're seeing much higher commute times. When we look at the share of commuters with 1 or greater hour commutes by Tampa Bay counties, it's no surprise that, again, those outlying counties like Hernando, Pasco, Polk are bringing in some of the highest percentages of commuters with hour-plus long commutes. You can see that we worsened in this indicator. The value is in red, so we fell from last year, meaning that our commute times or the share of commuters with those very long commutes got worse. And we fell in our rankings as well. We moved from 13th place to 15th place. Tying in the fact that we are tied to our vehicles with much longer commute times and having to use our roadways, our highways more often. Unfortunately, this also ties into pedestrian and cyclist fatalities. Tampa Bay here ranks in last place across our comparison set. So we are now the most dangerous of all comparison communities for pedestrian and cyclists. And you can see here that we are looking at close to 3.5 times higher than the national average in terms of pedestrian and cyclist fatalities per 100,000 residents. When we're looking at alternative modes of transportation beyond just using a vehicle, we typically look at what we call transit supply and demand. So you have 2 indicators here that we often refer to, and that is transit ridership, which represents the demand side, and transit vehicle revenue miles, which typically represents the supply side. You can see that both of those indicators worsened in their value, and we are also in the bottom of our comparison set at 19th and 20th place for each of those. One additional metric that I wanted to share with you today is that Hillsborough County has a comparatively large population compared to some of our other Tampa Bay counties. So another very important statistic to mention to you is something called passenger trips per revenue hour, which is the number of individual trips for every hour that buses are in service. Hillsborough County, or Hart, I should say, has close to 18 trips, which is the highest in our region of any transit agency across those 8 county region agencies. What we're seeing is that even with the limited service and the limited funding that Hart has, they are serving some of the highest number of people riding those buses. So the demand for the buses is there, even though the service is limited and the funding is limited. And so that was a very quick overview of the 67 indicators that we track every year. If you are interested in digging a little bit deeper into the data, please visit us at stateoftheregion.com. And again, you can drill down by county, or you can even drill down by metro area if you're interested in comparing, for example, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Hernando as a whole for the region. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Lucia. Let me just make a quick comment. And I don't mean to sound snippy, but it probably will sound snippy. Is there anything in this report that the mayor's office could capture and turn into Tampa is the greatest at? Is there something there that is positive in terms of PR? What would that be?
I would say that net migration rate tells you that we are incredibly attractive to everyone outside our region. And I don't say that lightly. I am someone who grew up in Tampa and I love Tampa. And I think for a lot of my young adult years, I took it for granted. Seeing how many people have moved here, the amenities we have, the cultural and recreational establishments, truly our weather, our low crime rate comparatively to some of the other metros of our size around the nation, it's attractive. I think we have to keep that in context because a lot of the issues that we're facing have to do with the fact that all of us who live here love to live here, and the word is out about how great we are. So now we just have to manage the population growth and some of the factors that lead to having access to well-paying jobs, particularly those that are kids and poor, to be able to move people from where they're choosing to live for affordability reasons and where they need to work.
Okay, for audio purposes, I don't know that you necessarily have to keep your camera on to take Q&A from us, because a lot of what you just said was garbled. So if you want to turn your camera off, any questions or comments? Mr. Citro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the risk of sounding redundant, I'll keep on saying it until somebody repeats me. Lucia, you keep going through the 57% is housing and transportation. Tampa is the center of all transportation, land, sea, and air. And you're showing that outside counties, people have to come into the city of Tampa every day to go to work. Do we, or will we ever truly have affordable housing without public mass transportation? Your stats are just proving my comment. You can't, more and more people cannot afford to live in the city, which means they have to live out the city. And the further out they go, the longer it takes them to get into the city of Tampa. They have gas, insurance, maintenance, upkeep, and once they finally get here, they've got parking. In your opinion, and after the studies that you have done and the information that you have shown us, would better mass transportation cut that 50 cents of every dollar that people are paying out in transportation and in housing? Would that be reduced if we had a better public mass transportation system?
Yes, sir, I believe it would. And I also believe that it would address many of the pressing issues that we have in terms of being able to staff critical positions in Many of our areas that are located in some of those more expensive areas to live. And so I think it would address a recruitment and retention situation that we're currently facing, as well as that affordability issue. Many of our issues are interconnected. So you can think about it as a three-legged stool. That means that if we don't address housing affordability options, if we don't address transit and transportation options, and also the workforce piece to ensure that individuals have access to education and credentialing for those higher paying jobs, we're going to continue to revisit this issue because it requires an entire system level change to be able to make a difference.
Chair, I thank you very much for your honest answers. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Question again with some thought to brevity, please. Dr. Davison.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. Just a couple of questions. I noticed on the employers in the Tampa Bay region, you didn't include any government employees. In Hillsborough County, I think the top 4 employers are all pretty much government employers. Then you never said what the taxes were, what the baseline taxes were between any of those 20 regions. And I'm not sure if you explained the regions. In other words, was Seattle, was that an metropolitan statistical area? Because the Tampa Bay region would be bigger than the metropolitan statistical area. So there's some statistics questions I have to ask, but in the sense of brevity, if you could just explain why you left off the government employee in your calculations and in the taxes.
Sure. So if you're talking about investors at the partnership, our investors are private sector and not-for-profit sector. We do not have investors representing the public sector at the Tampa Bay Partnership. In addition to that, to address your other questions, we focus on 20 comparison communities. Some of them are peer communities. So you can think about metros such as Charlotte, Austin, Orlando, and I can give you the list of that as well if you reach out to me. It's also on our site at stateoftheregion.com. But we also track some aspirational markets such as Seattle, Miami, Atlanta that are doing very well in certain things. And that particularly helps with being able to measure progress towards those goals. And I'd like to just pause for a minute and allow our Senior Director of Communications, Shannon Callahar, to address some of that further.
Thank you, Dr. Ferris. I wanted to add that although we don't have any government agencies as part of the partnership as investors, we do work very closely with different county, municipal, and state government officials on the issues that we address. So I just wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged and represented as well.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the side of the room? Right side? Justin?
I just want to make a comment. It's a great presentation. Appreciate that information that's provided there. And also clarification on the municipalities that are compared. I do agree with Dr. Davison's request as far as how come government agencies weren't involved in this, understanding that. And going back to Mr. Citro's comments there, I mean, when I moved out here, the government moved me here when I was in the military. And we bought our house where we bought it at because they were being told that, hey, eventually there's going to be a water taxi going between the Apollo Beach region area out to the base. And, you know, I know where I live at. There's a lot of military affiliation that are out there. And it's just kind of interesting how all this information feeds to how we can reduce or make better investments, yet that was always in the plan. And then I remember reading a couple of years ago how that taxi's been cut off and people were questioning, why are we wasting all this tax money for just a certain niche of population? Well, the question goes back to, wouldn't be, if we're looking at that, it wouldn't be also spending money on a niche population for public transportation. So, I mean, we need to look at some of these things. And I think this is a great study that helps kind of prove some points in determining how this place should grow. What I would like to see, though, recommend is, can we see where the inflows of movement into this region are coming from? Because it would be nice, I know you said you use places like Seattle, Miami as those, what Tampa's trying to, I guess, aspire to be. But it'd be nice to see where these inflows are coming from. Are they moving from Miami up here to Tampa? I mean, that's something significant to understand, because then that means that, hey, it's too expensive to live down in Miami. So what's eventually gonna happen to Tampa? That's my comments.
Mr. Chairman, just one more comment on what he had to say.
Let me get done with the roster here. Anything else
If
here?
I could just address that, the first part of that comment, I also should make sure to mention that what informs this report every year is stakeholder meetings, where we have upwards of 100, 150 stakeholders in the region, many of which are government officials from the 8-county region that attend and give us feedback on this report and tell us what we should be measuring, why it's important to measure it a certain way. So we have those coming up in September, and we do get feedback from the community across all stakeholders, including government, to inform the report.
Okay, anything else in the room? Online, any questions, comments?
Christine put a comment in the chat.
Okay, what's that?
Christine says, is Tampa Bay Partnership continuing its research on access to jobs? In 2019, University of Minnesota Accessibility Observatory found less than 10% of jobs are accessible by people without cars in a reasonable commute time.
So yes, we are. We have right now underway 2 research studies that are looking at housing affordability. And as I mentioned, so many different elements are tied to housing affordability. And one of the elements that will be looked into as part of those research studies is the work-home commute distance and where those centers of work are related to the largest population centers for commute into those urban core jobs. So we will produce that report in about a year's time.
Okay. Online, any questions or comments?
Christine has her hand raised.
Jane, you have something other than your chat?
Yes, thank you for reading my question aloud. I want to say thank you very much to the Tampa Bay Partnership and express to our Citizens Advisory Committee that this fantastic content is available at all times online. And I don't know how you all feel, but since we devote so much of our personal time to the CAC and trying hard to advance mobility options and affordable transportation for our community members, I think it's great to know this information, but I also have been watching this information for about, I think as long as it's been put together, maybe 7 years, and we're always at the bottom. And I hope our group can advance improvements along the way that actually drive changes to these ratings. Thank you.
Anything else online? All right. I have, excuse me.
I see no other hand.
Okay. Just real quick comment. As I understand it, and I'm certainly subject to being corrected, this status report that we're receiving is not on the Board of Directors agenda. Is it in fact scheduled for presentation to the board?
It is not. We took it to you tonight because the CAC requested this presentation.
All right. Well, I'm going to make a motion that we recommend submission of this report and this presentation to the TPO board at the earliest possible opportunity.
I second.
I'm sorry, I need to pass the gavel to do this. All right, I move that that this report be advanced to the TPO board for presentation at the earliest possible opportunity.
I still second.
We have a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, Gail, can you help us? Yeah, questions online?
No, there are no questions online.
Okay. Gail, can you help us take a roll call vote?
This could be done by a voice vote if you like.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate the care of the gavel. All right, that takes care of that item, correct?
I have one
Dana?
question for Lucia, Lucio?
I don't know if you're still here.
Yes, I'm here.
Can you repeat what you said about how something about Hart's trips, there's still 18 trips or something? I didn't quite understand what you said that was like redeeming of the demand for Hart service.
Sure.
And is
So
that
one,
is that in the report?
it is not in the report. And again, this has really speaks to the relationships that we have with the stakeholders in the region, right? So are we measuring enough metrics tied to transit? And this is something that came out of it, that we should also look at passenger trips per revenue hour. So that's basically the number of individual trips for every hour that the buses are in service. And when you look at comparable agencies to Hart in our region, Hart has one of the highest passenger trip rates per hour that they're in service. And what that means is that people are riding the buses even with the limited service that those buses are running on. So you have close to 18 trips per revenue hour of people boarding those buses. And I think that's a very important metric to also take in consideration with the two other transit ones that we present in the report.
Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, we have, or depending on which clock you're looking at, are about to hit the witching hour of 8. Is everyone still okay to stay in place? Yep, okay. Branch Forbes Road and McIntosh Road, PD&Es, Craig Fox, FDOT. Is that you, sir?
Yes, it's me.
Welcome. All right.
Thank you everyone for having me here today. My name is Craig Fox, Department of Transportation, District 7. I present on the Branch Forbes and McIntosh Road PDD projects. All right, so the Branch Forbes and McIntosh Roads covers these two parking limits. Both of the limits go from south of US 92, where our mouse is, to north of I-4. And they also include limited improvements to the ramps along I-4. Now, the purpose is to improve roadway capacity along with improved safety and system linkage. That wasn't part of the presentation.
No, but it's part of our life every month. It happens. There you go.
So Branch Forbes and McIntosh Road operate at currently at an unacceptable level of service, F in both the current 2020, well, both in 2020 and also the future 2045. They also provide battle connections between US 92 and I-4. As far as safety improvements to the roadways, currently there are no system bicycle lanes along either road. And there's also a discontinuous sidewalk throughout the project developments. And there's no current shared use path. So first going to start discussion about McIntosh Road and then go to Branch Forbes. So McIntosh Road, everything about that is going to be kind of just the blue theme, and then Branch Forbes is going to be an orange theme, so you can tell the difference. So this is a zoomed in map of the limits of the projects, south of US 92 and then north of I-4. Now, McIntosh Road it connects to Florida's strategic intermodal system. It's a network of transportation facilities that are critical to the state's economy and mobility. McIntosh and Branch Forbes both connects to I-4 and US 92, and they also connect to regional centers within the Tampa Bay area, and they also connect to hurricane evacuation routes, which are I-4 and US 92. This is an existing typical section along McIntosh Road. You see the lanes vary between 10 and 11 feet. There is no sidewalk and there are no bike lanes along the current facility. And the posted speed limit is 40 miles an hour. All right, so the length of the project limits are around just over 1 mile. We intend to provide 2 lanes in each direction, along with improving the ramps. And right of way will be required for stormwater management facilities and also floodplain compensation sites. So here's the preferred typical section. See, we have 2 lanes in each direction with a median, minimum 22 feet median. Lanes are proposed to be 11 feet at the current time with a 10-foot shade use path on each side. And in certain sections, we'll require some gravity wall because we're going to be raising the road a little bit for resiliency. And also there's just a lot of great difference between the current road and the right of way to the side. And the target speed and the design speed is proposed for 35 miles an hour. So that'll be a reduction in speed of 5 miles an hour. So going on to traffic volumes and crash history. 2045 projected volumes range from $16,000 to just above $34,000. Sorry, 34,000 ADT, with level of service F if it's states in existing condition. From 2015 to 2019, there was 175 fractures along the corridor, and that's shown on the heat map to the right. So you can see where it kind of bubbles out. That's where you have the most severe crash, well, the most higher rate of crashes. The historical average crash rate is 10.23, which is above the statewide average for this type of facility of 0.69. And 47% of the crashes along the corridor are rear end types of crashes. So there are no pedestrian or bicycle related crashes along the corridor, and there were no recorded fatalities. Along the on-ramps and off-ramps for I-4 will be widening just the edges of them. So it's basically the end of the ramps closer to McIntosh Road to provide for additional storage for vehicles going in there, so it don't back up to the interstate. So it's going to increase from 1 lane to 2 lanes. And then for the existing conditions are 1 lanes and 2 lanes, 1 lane on ramps, 2 lanes off ramps. And proposed conditions would be 2 lane off ramps, 3 lane 2 lane on ramps and 3 lane off ramps. Sorry, I'm trying to get through in the interest of time. And also standard shoulders. All right, moving on to stormwater management and floodplain compensation. So we have 5 proposed stormwater management facilities. There's 1 existing within the MDOT right of way and 4 proposed off-site stormwater management facilities requiring additional of 10, a little over 10 acres of right of way. And we also propose 5 floodplain compensation sites, which require additional 28 acres of right of way of floodplain compensation sites because the project does lie within FEMA flood zones areas. Now, the PB study is looking at various conditions, including natural resources, which includes impacts to wetlands, species, cultural resources, such as historic properties and Section 4F and Section 4F impacts, land use community impacts with the schools and mobility, and also air quality, noise and contamination. And more information about this will be present at the public hearing that I'll get to later on in the presentation. So currently, the design is estimated around 4.5 million. Right away for the project for the roadway widening is still pending. We anticipate to have that before. We're going to have that before the public hearing, of course. For the stormwater ponds and floodplain compensation sites, that's estimated around 25 million. With a total project cost, well, its construction is estimated at 45 million, with a total estimated cost of 80 million plus dependent costs that I mentioned. This is consistent with the current transportation plans as far as the TIP and STIP go. We are going to work with the NPO to get it into the 2050 LRTP, but that will actually occur after the public hearing. This is just the timing of the update with the 2050 LRTP. So the data collection, so the study began in late 2021. We are scheduled for a public hearing September 26th, and we anticipate the approval of the study in 2025. Project is funded for design in the past fiscal year 2023-2024. Right-of-way acquisition and construction funding is not currently funded. All right, then moving on to the Branch Forest PD study. So this project is around 3.5 miles just east of the McIntosh Road study, but similar scope of work within this project. So again, the limits are from south of US 92 to north of I-4, as shown in the image on the right. It again is part of the SIS network and critical to I-4 and 92, and they also serve to connect to those hurricane evacuation routes. The existing typical section is pretty similar, 10 to 11 feet again, with no sidewalks and no bike lanes along the facility. The posted speed limit on Branchport is 35 miles an hour currently. So one's a little bit shorter, less than a mile. We'll provide 2 lanes in each direction with the same improvements, similar improvements to the on-ramps and off-ramps by 4, and will also be right away for the stormwater management and floodplain compensation sites. So this is proposed typical section for the Branch Forest Road projects. Again, we have 11-foot lanes, 2 in each direction. A shared use path, 10 feet on each side, and with a kind of a grass separator in between. And the design speed is 35 miles an hour, so we're keeping it the same. So traffic volumes, they reach from a little above 13,000 to 41,000 in 2045, with the current levels, well, current and future, if no change is done, level of service of F. Crash history is 183 vehicle crashes within the corridor. Again, is above the statewide average of 0.69 at a current crash rate of 11.10. 44% of these crashes are rear-end types, with no bike or pedestrian crashes or fatalities, or motorist or pedestrian crashes reported. Fatalities reported. Same improvements, similar improvements to the I-4 ramps, going from 1-lane on-ramps to 2-lane on-ramps, and then also from 2-lane off-ramps to 3-lane off-ramps. Again, these are at the end of the ramps closer to the branch floors to increase storage capacity, so deploy backups on the interstate. So for stormwater management and floodplain compensation, 4 proposed ponds are proposed for this project. There's 1 existing within the FDOT right of way, and 3 proposed off-site stormwater management facilities, which will require 3.79 acres of additional right of way. 1 floodplain compensation site is proposed at 2.44 acres, and that will require 2.44 acres of additional right of way. Again, for the same reasons with the flood zone. This PV study will cover some items that I mentioned before regarding natural resources, cultural resources, social and physical, and impacts of the physical environment, and more information on that will be available at the public hearing. And the cost for Branch Forge Road design is around 3.2 million. Right away for the roadway widening 7.6 and 8.5 for the stormwater facilities. Construction costs are 32.4 million with a total estimated cost of 65. This again is consistent with the current tip and step, and the department will continue to work with NPO to get it in the 2050 LRT. Same project schedule for the Branch Forest projects with a public hearing September 26th, and I'll get into that in the next slides. And also similar as far as funding goes, with design funding partially funded in fiscal year 23-24 with no funding for right-of-way acquisition at this time. So the public hearing we're looking to is information on it. It's going to be Thursday, September 26th from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. with a formal portion starting at 6:30. It's going to be at the Hillsborough Community College Trinkel Center, and the address is on the screen. We also have the option to attend virtually at the same time, and that information will be posted it's going to be via GoToWebinar, and that information will be posted to the project website when we get closer to the hearing. So here are the 2 websites for both projects. Again, my name is Craig Fox, below is my number and my email address. And at this time, I would like to open the floor for questions. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions or comments from Mr.
Oh, no,
Fox?
I just need to, sorry, recognize my team here. We have Mr. Mohead from CDM Splash. So,
Mohit Garg from CDM Smith. I'm the project manager for Macintosh project.
And Jeff Devani with Consour Engineers, project manager for Branch Forest.
Right, could the first gentleman state his name again and spell it for the record, please? Because I didn't hear it properly.
Mohit, M-O-H-I-T. Last name is G-A-R-G.
Okay, and you're with whom? I'm sorry.
CDM Smith.
CDM Smith. Okay, thank you. Dana?
Who requested this project and who owns the project and who's paying for the project?
So I know we're doing this in conjunction with Hillsborough County. So there are Hillsborough County facilities. The funding on the roads is mixed at the time, so I can get back to you with exactly the fund sources for them. But we are assuming that it will receive some federal funds for the project.
Any other questions or comments? Dr. Davis?
Yeah, I was on both those roads yesterday, and they do need to be improved. Would this come under non-SIS funding in the future?
They are not SIS facilities at the time, right now, so they wouldn't be able for SIS funding. Well,
Yeah, they're just saying there was $140 million you quoted there. I think was $560 million. So you're looking at 20% of the entire long-range transportation plan in those 2 roads. And that's what I was talking about. They're going to add another 20%. Doesn't make any sense. the plan, the long-range plan for this FDOT makes no sense.
I was just gonna,
So wait a minute. No,
I was gonna
F, F,
actually.
F dot, just, yeah, get your thing together, but one speaker, please. Right, I don't know if there was a question. there.
I was just, he answered it, it's not SIS, and I just wanted to point out that that's 20 to 25% of the entire long-range transportation plan budget.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Left side of room?
Sorry,
Stephen?
Craig, and Brian, I'd love to get your thoughts on, is what he said accurate? What Dr. Davidson said, is that accurate?
Brian Hunter with FDOT. So this would not count in that non-CIS or non-CIS funding category because these are county roads. FDOT funding would not go to them, so it would come from that local category, not the non-CIS category.
That raises more questions.
Okay, questions, any more from the left side of the room over here? Right side of the room,
Yeah, I've got something.
Dustin?
So my question is, one, when you listed off the trash percentages and all that, is that just on the two roads? Is that in the whole entire region area to include the interstate and those overpasses? Because my understanding is it's a project to widen the roads, which makes sense. But this is going to lead into another question, which still baffles me around here. Why did we design these on-ramps that are so short that now we're creating, we're fixing a problem in one area, but now creating a bigger problem in another? So for example, I live off Big Bend Road. I'm happy with that interchange you guys have made and enhanced it, but you created a problem now for everybody trying to get on, going north. Certain times of day, it just becomes basically a parking lot because everybody's trying to merge on to the interstate. You have all the traffic that's coming up there and there's just no room. I just don't understand why you guys don't do like what you did with Gibsonton Road, that on-ramp. It just stays in its lane going down. Now granted, it turned into a lane because it jumps onto Selman Expressway. I have a fear that with these two on-ramps, without making traffic fluid through there, we're going to turn into how everybody enjoys the drive going over to Orlando, just outside of Kissimmee. You know, all that traffic's just flooding into the interstate and you're just backed up for miles and miles and miles. So instead of enhancing the flow of traffic, now we've just impeded the flow of traffic and that's going to hinder economic development. So what I would like to see is why are we making these on-ramps? You know, you're taking one lane and making it 2 lanes. You're taking 2 lanes, making it 3 lanes. And for me, it understanding that why we're having all these half of them are accidents or rear end accidents because everybody's trying to force their way onto the road, don't want to have to wait. Well, what's going to happen? Well, we reduce that bumping behind trying to get on the interstate. Now we're just going to manage to do it trying to get on the interstate or sideswipe people.
So this project is actually in conjunction with some other projects at both intersections, both interchanges, to improve flow at those interchanges. So there's already been some work done. First, right now, if you go on Macintosh, you can see that they recently completed some work to make the off ramps longer. So this is kind of another piece of that puzzle to help increase flow along that area. So like I was mentioning, this one's more so focused on issues of storage capacity well, one of them is actually not signalized intersection right now, so we're going to make it a signalized intersection to make it safer intersection, and also provide crosswalks and lighting in the lot. And then we're also going to make improvements to the on ramps too. So it's kind of can't do everything all at once, but this is part of our overall kind of comprehensive look at those interchange operations.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, you have anything?
Yeah. 2 miles of road, total of 150 million, seems pretty expensive, especially when you want to do sidewalks. I don't know about you. I mean, I'm all for sidewalks, but there's better places to do sidewalks in this county. I'm not gonna use a sidewalk across now. 3 lanes of people coming off the highway, try to walk in front of them, coming off, going 70, 80 off the highway. And in these 2 areas, all the businesses that are in these proposed areas, they're all car-oriented businesses, gas stations, drive-throughs, auto repair stores. I just don't see anyone really using them. And it said that there was no pedestrian involved accidents. Is that because there's no pedestrians there to begin with?
So if you look at McIntosh Road particularly, most pedestrian movements seem to be either along US 92 or along, or along, St. Mark Pond Road to the north. There wasn't a lot of pedestrian, but when we actually took council, was any recorded pedestrian usage along McIntosh Road. However, there are 3 schools around that area. There's Independence Academy, there's Strawberry Crest High School, there's also Bailey Elementary along there too. And we did actually meet with both staff from Bailey Elementary and Strawberry Crest. We're still trying to reach out to Independence Academy. That's right there at the corner of US 92 and McIntosh Road. And so they let us know the kind of pattern that their students get there. A lot of it is vehicular traffic. I think around 20% actually for Strawberry Crest come from just literally outside of the region altogether because it's a magnet school. But there's a mobile home facility on the west side of McIntosh Road, and those students do use McIntosh Road. So, and we are actually looking in the consequence about also including an RFB or block crosswalk to facilitate some moves there. So although there's not a lot visible, some of that could be, it's kind of, some of it's like kind of what the first chicken of the egg, so we have the opportunity to, provide some decent pedestrian and bike facilities throughout the area. So that's kind of, why both us and the county kind of wanted these typical sections so we could provide for those movements and serve those populations. The Branch Forbes is much more a rural kind of area. There's not nearly as many businesses along there. It's mostly concentrated at 92 or at I-4. But still, those roads are still kind of used a little bit less, but still kind of used to get to those school facilities.
Yeah, but then on top of that, we're expanding the lanes from 10 to 11 feet to now 11, 2 lanes each direction versus 1 lane each direction and adding shoulder. So the speeds, they're going to be well higher than what's the posted speed.
Yeah, we're not adding shoulder with this because it's going to be curb and gutter. But and then the lanes are right now, they're ranging from like.
I thought I saw on the one side where it was different picture, but similar, they were had 3 feet for the shoulder. Maybe for the.
This was for the
words.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, Jeff Lavandi on Branch Forbes, when we met with Hillsborough County, one of the things they requested for roads that are 2 lanes in a direction, the width that they need for emergency vehicles to pass a stall vehicle would be not just the 11 feet in each lane, but they needed an extra couple feet. So 25-foot opening is what they had requested for Branch Forbes to allow emergency vehicles to pass should a stalled vehicle happen there. That's why there's an extra 3 feet. The bikes are not in a bike lane, they're actually on the shared use paths.
Jeff, would you state your name again for the record and spell your last name?
Yes, Jeff Novotny with Consort Engineers, Novotny.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions in the room? Dana?
You actually answered a couple of them. I was wondering like why 11-foot lanes, but so I actually absolutely support having a shared use path there. I imagine that there's some expected growth, and especially with schools in the area, I think it's important that funds be shared for multimodal transportation options. And I don't think that the sidewalks are really even a fraction of the 150 million that's needed for the study and everything. So I just want to make sure that there is support for those shared use paths. The crosswalk. You said there might be a crosswalk designed.
Yeah, for
Okay.
on McIntosh Road.
Can you, because I was wondering, because it is 2 miles or so of road total. So I imagine that there's going to be some need for crossing somewhere in there. I don't know like what businesses exactly are on either side, but
So we actually aim to put it just a little south of the mobile home facility.
Okay.
So there would be, because that's kind of the highest concentration of the residents along the corridor. And then 2 is in an area where it kind of makes a little bit of sense across somebody's going north and south, like traffic. So if somebody's going from, at somebody at US 92 and McIntosh Road, we want to give folks opportunity instead of crossing there. Although, we're going to improve the crosswalks there, but obviously a turn lane could make a wider intersection, which means more lanes cross, sort of provide an alternate ability for folks to cross further or closer to where there could be, folks going to some generators.
So is the zoning along that area like for commercial? So there might be some future commercial growth?
There's already some existing commercial on there, like there's a Hungry Howie's along there, there's a McDonald's, a Burger King, and some other kind of like commercial entities, gas stations.
Okay, do you think that a signalized crosswalk would be needed, or are there intersections, or is it just gonna be a crosswalk in the middle?
Oh, no, so it's gonna be the RFB, so it's gonna be the yellow flashing one, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nothing else in the room. Online, anybody have, any current committee member online have a question?
Christine put a question in the chat. It says, thank you, Craig. Questions. What assets are connected along the project? Schools, businesses, grocery stores? Question 2, posted speed is 40 miles per hour. Have any speed studies been conducted to measure actual speeds?
I don't recall if I'd have to check with the traffic operations group. I don't think that was running a speed study, because typically we try to avoid, I'm pretty sure y'all heard this before from FDOT, it's like typically we try to avoid doing speed studies because can be compelled to increase it, try to get away from that. So, but I can get with our traffic ops groups and see if they have any recent speed studies.
Thank you.
Okay.
I do see a hand raised, but Clifford, you are not yet a committee member at this time. You will be at the next meeting should the TPO board approve you at their meeting next week.
Okay, again, any current committee members with questions online? See any?
No current members.
Okay, nothing else in the room. Craig, just excuse the rudimentary question, but I'm a little curious. This item is not on the board of directors agenda for this month. It's being presented as a status report to us. I'm not sure I know why. So what is the why? Why are we even hearing this right now?
So we're hearing this because, so typically what we do is that when we have an upcoming public hearing, let's come to the committees first and then go to the board afterwards. So we're going to the committees right now, starting, with CAC. And then after the public hearing, then we're scheduled on the MPO board, the TPO agenda to present to them after the public hearing.
After the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, but you're not asking for any action from us. This is purely informational. So is the intention to come back to us again for some action item before?
No, there's no action item involved in this.
Okay, is this, are either one or both of these already in the tip?
So yes, but we're updating, but we're working with the MPO as far as getting them in the LRTP.
Okay, are either one of them considered beyond the point of no return?
No, the no build option is always a viable alternative.
That's still open now?
Yes, yeah, throughout the whole process study, the no
Okay.
build alternative is a viable option.
All right.
They finished the meeting.
Any other questions in the room? Okay, well, there's no asks, so I guess, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is on the Board of Directors status report for next week, Suncoast Parkway. I got to ask, how much time is it going to take to do this?
It should be Chelsea fine with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. Should be a 10-minute presentation.
Okay, it's booked for 15. 10 would be great, less would be better. So do the best you can, all right? Huh? I guess till we finish. I'm inclined to skip those yes and yes for now.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Siaset Khan, and I am with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. Before Michael Delowe, our consultant project manager, presents our PD&E study, I would like to give a brief introduction to our project. The primary work mix of our PD&E study analyzes roadway widening and secondarily, other roadway improvements on the Suncoast Parkway from Van Dyke Road in Hillsborough County to State Road 52 in Pasco County. Project's need is made evident when considering that from the roadway's inception to just last year, traffic on the Suncoast Parkway between Lutz Lake Fern Road and State Road 54 has grew by 300%. In the immediate areas around the Suncoast Parkway in Hillsborough County, we have seen support for our PD&E study from our customers. It should be noted that turnpike projects are solely user financed and are separately prioritized outside of the MPO and do not compete with other FDOT or local projects for funding. With that being said, I would like to hand it off to Michael.
Thank you, COC. Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Michael Baru. We just go right into the presentation.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Garau.
Thanks.
So let me just dive into the overview, the P&E study limits. COC mentioned our studies evaluating the widening of the Suncoast Parkway from south of Van Dyke Road in Hillsborough County to north of State Road 52 in Pasco County. There are 5 existing interchanges within the study area, 2 of which are in Hillsborough County. And we also have 1 potential new interchange at Rangeland Boulevard. That one is in Pasco County. As COC mentioned, the Suncoast Parkway is a toll facility, so this project is funded using toll dollars. We are in the P&E study phase, which means we're evaluating options, looking at existing conditions, future needs, and developing alternatives to ultimately come up with a study recommendation, of course, taking that through the public involvement process. As part of our study, we're looking at future needs by year 2050. That includes all mainline capacity needs, interchange needs, as well as looking at, from the alternative standpoint, the environmental effects of each of those alternatives. The needs of the study are based on capacity needs, looking at year 2050. We're also looking at safety, mobility needs in the corridor, as well as opportunities to enhance emergency response and evacuation times. So now looking at the needs that we've identified so far by year 2050. For the segment from south of Van Dyke Road to State Road 54, we are showing the need for 6 lanes today. It's currently a 4-lane facility, showing the need for 6 lanes today and the need for 8 lanes by year 2040. Further to the north, outside of the county limits, we show the need for 6 lanes in 2030 and 2035. This is the typical section. The one above represents the current roadway in Hillsborough County. It's, as I mentioned, it's a 4-lane facility within this segment of Hillsborough County. We're showing the ultimate condition for 2050 as an 8-lane facility. And I also want to note that we have the Suncoast Trail beginning at the Lutz Lake Fern Road interchange that continues all the way through the northern end of the limits and continues beyond that as well. I mentioned that we have multiple interchanges in the study area. We're going to focus on the 2 within Hillsborough County. That includes Van Dyke Road and Lutz Lake Fern Road. Within Van Dyke Road interchange, we're only proposing modifications by adding additional turn lanes, adding additional turn lanes off the ramp into Ramblewood Road. We have been through this process coordinating with Hillsborough County. There's an ongoing project to widen Van Dyke Road and coordinating with them to make sure that their improvements are accommodated. That include part of their project, they're adding a shared use path on the south side. And then as part of our interchange improvements, we'll be adding a shared use path on the north side of the interchange area. At Lutz Lake Fern Road, we're also proposing turn lane modifications as noted on the slide here. As part of our project, we'll also be including shared use path, both on the north and south side of the interchange. As you'll see there, there's a high school, Steinbrenner High School, as well as a middle school and an elementary school. So the use of that shared use path would be a valuable asset for the community in that area. As part of the P&E study, we'll be evaluating a variety of environmental and community effects, and from social, cultural, including archaeological, historical resources, natural, which includes wetlands and species, and then as well as noise impacts. This is an overview of our study schedule. We are just beyond the public information meeting. I'll cover that in the next slide. We anticipate to hold the public hearing in the first quarter of next year and then complete the study by the summer of 2025. Back in June, we held an alternatives public information meeting, provided multiple opportunities for the public to get involved. It was very well attended. We have over 100 participants between the virtual and in-person options. Well received by the community, recognition of the need for the project, the need for improving this area of the Suncoast Parkway. And that concludes our presentation. COC Vine, who introduced me, that's his contact information on the top. Anil Sharma is the Turnpike's project manager. He cannot join us tonight, but his contact information is shown there below.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions? Dana?
You said the entirety of this project will be paid for with toll revenue. Is that correct? So the Suncoast Parkway as is profitable, like it's getting a return from just the toll revenue.
Well, the way the Turnpike does their funding is not by project, so it's the Turnpike receives toll revenues throughout their entire system.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, and then identifies the needs and applies those toll dollars to those needs.
And is there traffic on like there's congestion being shown on the parkway? Because I don't take it, so I really don't know.
Yes, so today, especially the segment from Van Dyke up to 54, currently is a boarding facility. It's showing the need for 6 today. So that is the most congestion sex.
And that's like stop and go at peak hours or?
Yeah, peak hour condition, yes.
Do you know what the level of service is off the top of your head?
The level of service, if it's needed, it would be beyond level of service D, so it's probably in the E or above range today.
Thanks.
Dr. Davison?
Like Dan, I took that road every day from New Tampa all the way up to Crystal River for 15 years, and I've seen all the changes, and it has to be done. There's no doubt about it. And I think that was a great presentation, and looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Matt Zink?
Quick question. So if you're increasing the number of, so Ridge Road just opened, there's gonna be another one, and then we're going to 8 lanes. Do you guys coordinate with like FDOT on where it all ends down in the Tampa area, right at Howard Franklin Bridge, or where it all dumps off, being that the other studies we saw today show that all the other counties dump their traffic into us, and it's gonna like, you have traffic now? Like, so do you guys coordinate with FDOT on how these people are gonna get moved around once 3 times the number of traffic right now is being dumped into that interchange?
Yeah, there's coordination, within, the Turnpike itself, within their system. South of us is the Veterans Expressway. And certainly coordination with FDOT District 7 as well. It's part of all that.
I guess my concern is that you can coordinate, but if there's not a improvement, then
Well, this
is the same spot.
Yeah, in this particular project, we're focused for the segment from Van Dyke to north of 752. So this is the focus of this project. There are other ongoing planning studies that will identify needs elsewhere in the system.
Right, that'd be upstream that causes problems downstream, right? So like approval or starting this will cause downstream problems later on. If you're increasing capacity here, eventually they're gonna come out here, right? So like, that's where my question is, that there's coordination. So, okay, sounds like there is.
Yes.
Okay, anything else, right side?
I don't know if this
Was that a hand?
Yes,
that's-
I don't know if this is stepping out of bounds on this. It's not so much a question, but a statement. So I'd kind of like to find out why we're having such a mass need for on these roads, right? Because, I mean, I'm happy they're expanding them, and I'm glad it's user paid funded, right? But I look at it as, is this part of like one of those unknown taxes that's forced upon us because all the rest of surface roads don't work? I know for me, I come from the south, I jump on the Selman to get to work because why? That's the quickest way to get there. And, you know, I would just like to see something that kind of shows, nothing against, you know, the expressway, but it almost seems like we're defeating purpose on trying to help make it quicker, faster, less costly. We heard a brief today about how expensive it's starting to get around here. It's affecting, you know, certain people and how much they make. It'd just be nice to see why is that cost? Why are people flooding onto the expressways? Because none of the other surface streets are sufficient enough, or is it? And why is that? Is there some underlying cause for that? Because I know where I'm at, I used to get frustrated knowing that CSX Railway would run right at peak traffic hour times. So that's all I got.
Okay. I don't know if you've got any response to that. It really wasn't a question, so.
No.
Okay. Anybody online?
There is nobody left online.
Okay.
From committee members.
All right. God bless them. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you being here and hanging in there with us. Okay, the next status report, we're going to jump over and probably just leave it behind for tonight. But Sarah, I think you had something brief you wanted to say
Yes.
to set that up.
This is this feasible plan update. In the past, the TIFA board has sent a letter to FDOT with comments. We anticipate that we would take a draft of that letter to you for approval in September, and it would go to the TPO board. Further action should they choose to take it in September. In the agenda packet, we have the presentation and a link to the plan. If you notice anything that stands out to you now at the respects to comments, if you could email them to me by Monday, that way we'll incorporate them in the draft. You can still make those comments at the meeting itself in September, but if you get them in advance, then it would be incorporated in the draft that you see.
Everybody got that? Yep. Okay. Any questions?
Can you add those instructions in the email, please?
Okay, that takes us to unfinished business and new business. Let me just say as an aside, unless somebody else has a motion on this topic, I will have a motion to present regarding the I-275 expansion north of Hillsborough. So I'm going to need a quorum in the room. So far, we've got one. Everybody still okay? All right, we got bodies and chairs. We're over 7. Okay, good. I'm not going to present my motion out of order. We'll go ahead and do the evaluation of proposed LOPP reprioritization. That's the list of proposed projects. It's on the board of directors agenda. And before we do it, let me just cop to an error that was obviously of my making and caused the confusion earlier about the minutes. I said in my chair's report that there were 3 items. That was my mistake. Obviously, there were 4. We've already discussed it, but more to the point, they're identified as 4 items in the minutes that we were seeking to approve in the moment. And if you look at the agenda package backup material for what we're about to do, which is the evaluation of the lot prioritizations, there are 4 items there. So there is no amendment to the minutes that's necessary. It's just an amendment to my brain because I got that wrong. All right, Gail, hopefully that satisfies you, and Dana, I hope that satisfies you.
It's tiny, but it says 2 projects. In the minutes, it says 2 projects. So that does need to be changed to 3, and that's referring to the number of projects that Joe Citro.
Okay, well, it says 2 projects under item 64, and then it goes on to speak to the airport to downtown premium transit and Tico streetcar extension. Are those not 2 items under item 64?
And the Bright Lines.
Well, Brightline is under 73. That's a separate section, Brightline multimodal. And then you come in at the bottom of page 3 with your motion regarding the Hart CSX study. So that's 4 items.
Okay, if it looks right to you, then I trust that.
And what's in the summary that is being presented to the board reflects 4 items by bullet point. I don't know if you've seen this or not. but,
Yeah, I've looked at it.
okay. So anyway, with that said, you want to go ahead and tell us, whoever is presenting the lot?
Do this. Elizabeth Watkins of our staff prepared this agenda item, and in the agenda item, we do have a link to the presentation slides that she will be presenting to the TPO board at their meeting next week. And Elizabeth and I talked earlier about this, so at the June TPO board meeting, the board directed staff to analyze the impacts of amending the list of priority projects, the LOP, AKA the TIP Table 2, based on the Citizen Advisory Committee's recommendations. And as we just covered, the CAC proposed 4 changes, which included the airport to downtown premium transit to move that from 64 to 63. The Tico streetcar extension, currently at 64, moved to 63. The Brightline multimodal connections, currently at 73, moved that to 64. The Hart CSX study, currently ranked 96, to be 91. The TPO will assist in advancing these projects regardless of the position on the priority list. For the airport to downtown premium transit, this is an initial look with high-level transportation demand modeling. The Tico streetcar extension is programmed in the Transportation Improvement Program already. The Brightline multimodal station connections, we do have a study planned on this in the Unified Planning Work Program as it exists today. And the Hart CSX study, we're looking at advancing passenger rail through the MPOAC, which is the Association of MPOs in the state of Florida. When we take this to the board, we will present to them that if the TPO board desires to modify the list of priority projects or the LOP, a TIP amendment would be required, and it could be advanced simultaneously with any additional staff recommended modifications to enhance the effectiveness of the TIP. So that was the update that I have for you. And as mentioned, the TPO board will hear a presentation on this as a status report at their meeting next Wednesday. And should they seek to amend the TIP that would require advance notice, then we would certainly bring that to you at that time.
Okay, to be clear, to simply reshuffle these items on the tip, there needs to be notice and there will be a public hearing on it.
The TPO board has to notice and advertise a public hearing to modify the TIP.
Is it an amendment?
I would have to confirm if it's an amendment or if it's a modification. There might be separate public engagement rules, so I should clarify that. I'll have to clarify with our team what the rules are. Regardless if it's a public hearing or a meeting or an amendment or a revision, it would certainly come to this committee and it certainly would be publicly advertised.
Okay, and the briefing that the TPO board is going to receive at their meeting next week, is it somehow different from what we just heard? And what are they going to be told?
Sure. The TPO board will be getting presentation slides, which are included in your packet. The presentation slides will explain that the purpose of that meeting is to follow up with the direction from the June public hearing about the impact of changing the projects in the list of priority projects. It will explain what is the list of priority projects. It will talk about the funding that the TPO has discretion over and the timeline. It will explain the 4 projects that we just discussed, their adopted ranking and the CAC's recommended ranking. It will talk about how projects are evaluated as they are today to be put in the list of priority projects, which results in what that ranking number is from a technical perspective. It will mention the projects that would move down as a result of these moving up. Talk about the TPO's role and what we're already doing to advance some of these projects, which is what I just mentioned. It will talk very briefly about staff's current work, analyzing options to improve programming, to streamline and simplify plans, enhance priorities, and highlight completed projects, and seek other suggestions, and talk about a potential future workshop. And then it will ask the TPO board for their feedback. This is a status report to the TPO board, but we'll be asking them for their feedback on amending the list of priority projects at the November TPO board meeting, or to not amend the list of priority projects, but to workshop the programmatic recommendations for the 2025 LOP at the November TPO board meeting.
Okay, well, it's a mouthful. Thank you. Any comments or questions on any of this?
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, obviously.
I'll make it brief. At the last TPO MPO board meeting, when this was suggested, a board member made the statement that I know nothing about this. I want to have more information. Granted, that was a reasonable request. However, not more than 10 minutes later, that same board member said, well, I want to change what has already been planned for 275 from the interchange to Bears. That went swimmingly well. What was the difference between our request and the board member's request on moving so quickly? I love honesty. Thank you. Thank you.
It is, isn't it? Any other questions or comments about the LOP? It's a fun word to say. Give it a try if you need a little humor in your day. No, we're good on that? All right. Obviously, this is going to be going to the board next week. There's public comment available. If you want to show up and offer public comment and advance your ideas for the plan, do it. All right. They should be hearing from us. Okay. Now, this is the moment that I referenced earlier before you all unplug yourselves. Yes.
I just mentioned there is a link to the future topics. We have been tracking the topic requests we've been receiving from you, and we have some information included in the agenda packet to inform you of our progress on them.
Okay. I'm not sharing
the link.
Okay.
This isn't an adjournment.
Oh,
This is the passing of the gavel.
Oh,
Yeah, could you just send that link to us?
sure.
All right. For the record, I'm passing the gavel. Like to be recognized, Chair.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you all for hanging around and sticking with this. I have a motion to make with regards to the I-275 expansion that was suggested by Commissioner Wastel at the last meeting. This taking up the space between Hillsborough Avenue North to Bears. An area that was previously identified as an operational and safety project, mostly involving sound walls and I think some improvements to the intersection. Commissioner Wastel made a motion to change the description, to change the project essentially to make it a capacity project. My motion is a motion to strike the term capacity project from the tip for the line item addressing I-275 north of Hillsborough to north of Bears. That maybe could use a little bit of refinement, but basically I want that language out. So I think that captures it. That's my motion.
Second that.
We have a second. Who was it?
Matt.
Matt. Hey, Matt. Okay. Do we have any discussion? Dr. Davison?
I've got multiple questions. The first one is, why do you want that struck?
Okay. It's really pretty simple. It is the will of the community as expressed over now all of 9 years. When this dragon first raised its head back in 2015, the expansion of the interstate through that corridor, through those neighborhoods was on the table. In fact, some portions of that expansion were supposed to be tolled as it was originally presented to us. 3 years ago in 2021, after multiple public comment opportunities, both at the TPO board level and at the community level, where hundreds of people showed up to express their opposition to this. In 2021, on motion by Pat Kemp, the TPO board stripped that language out of the tip. They stripped the language that had to do with the expansion of the highway between Bears and Hillsborough Avenue and converted it to what it is or was up until last month to the safety walls, which was important to the neighborhood, and then other safety improvements. So from the community perspective, we thought we had this done and done. The problem is, and some of you may recall this, and I know this is going a little bit beyond your question. I'm sorry, Jim, but if you'll allow me. When going to the question of notice and just due process on all this, when the TPO staff presented the tip to us in June, those of you who were here may remember, I asked Wade Reynolds, and this is no hit on Wade. He's a great guy. He always presents well. I asked Wade Reynolds if there was anything whatsoever in the tip that might address the question of expansion of this section of the highway, Hillsborough to Beers. His response to me was, no, there is not. He went on to state what I now understand to have been an inaccuracy, that it was being considered for the 2050 LRTP, but it was not in the 2045 LRTP. In any event, there was no suggestion to staff or to us at that meeting, whatever date that was, in June 7th, I think. 12th, our meeting. There was no suggestion that this expansion was going to come up at all. No notice to us, no opportunity for public comment at the meeting, nothing. Then, of course, Commissioner Wastel, for his reasons, because I can't read a person's mind, he decided to slip it in literally at the 11th hour, and somehow it passed without any real question, although it was a vote by 8-7. It was very close. And at the same time that they were voting on this, they were debating whether or not we could reshuffle the priorities that we had suggested without some kind of further public comment or hearing. So I want this language out of the tip. I want it out of the tip as soon as possible. And if they want to revisit it, which I'm sure they will want to revisit it, they can do it as a tip amendment. They can do it with proper public comment. They can do it with notice to the public. There are people in these communities that are going to have their property rights and their quiet enjoyment affected negatively by this. They've said it ad nauseum, and we're being ignored. So this has no business in the tip. Commissioner Wastel, I think, was out of order. I believe this should not have been allowed by council, but it was. So there it is. That's the why. I'm sorry to be so.
No, I understand. I knew exactly what you were going to say before you said it. And I mean, I've followed this for a long time. And what
I know.
The communities that use I-275 are not just Seminole Heights and Ybor City and everything. It is a regional impact highway. In fact, when the citizens of Sunshine Citizens had the express laneway taken out, New Tampa was penalized by removing the east-west roadway and a bus rapid transit system from Wesley Chapel to downtown Tampa, because those express lanes were removed. And Joe Wagner had already, with the Hillsborough County Expressway Authority, funded by $14 million to do the PD&E, and then they were going to fund the construction just like they're going to fund the widening of Van Dyke. So the people in Seminole Heights penalized the people in New Tampa. And you want to talk about people turning out? The largest MPO meeting in history occurred in New Tampa over that roadway. Over 900 people showed up. And there were people in New Tampa and West Meadows that didn't want that roadway built. They were defeated 6-1. Just like I talked to people in Seminole Heights, they want it widened. There has never been a vote taken in the CDC saying, this is what we want. So the bottom line is, you want it out, I want it in. Okay. And the bottom line is that you penalized my community. My community was never even informed of it. And in fact, in a recent survey done in 2045, for the 2045, all the other communities in Hillsborough County wanted that road widened. The only people that took it down were the people that lived along the highway. So the community voted to widen the road. If you consider Hillsborough County the community, and Josh Wastel is a countywide commissioner.
Thank you, Dr. Davison. Yeah, exciting conversation. Mr. Citro, would you like to?
If you don't mind, just a simple rebuttal, Doctor. Yes, there are more than people in Hillsborough County that use that. There are people from all over the state of Florida, and God love our snowbirds, they use it too. However, the people that are most affected by it day in, day out is the community that lives around it. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but the pollution, both noise and air pollution, the particulates, all those sort of things stay in that community. They don't go to Wesley Chapel. They don't go up to Hernando County. They don't even go up to Michigan. They stay right there in that community. The people that live in that community are the most affected. Sure, Wesley Chapel uses that road. The people that live around that road are the most affected. Thank you.
And the rebuttal to that opinion is the
Make it
people in New
quickly.
Tampa have to suffer the same things because the congestion in New Tampa, because of the lack of that widening. So everybody's being affected by it.
One last thing, and if we had better mass public transportation,
Wouldn't
Okay,
happen.
thank you guys.
we wouldn't need
Thank you
them.
guys.
You gave it
Thank
up
you, guys.
to mass transit and they took it out because they
Dr. Davidson,
decreased it.
actually, Dana, would you like to-
I think he was, okay. So just to be crystal clear about a couple things. One, in 2021, the language was changed from a capacity project to just the noise wall and safety improvement project. So I have an issue with the fact that that has been changed only 2-3 years later. Perhaps there should have been an amendment to the LRTP. I just don't understand how we can flip-flop like that on the same exact thing. Also, and I actually, when I wasn't on the CAC, but I worked for the TPO as a contractor on a non-discrimination and equity plan that identifies and acknowledges the fact that that highway built through those communities to begin with was taken by eminent domain. It unfairly targeted Black communities that largely still live there. 80%, a study showed that 80% of the people still living there would be impacted, would be impacted are Black and Latino. There are a lot of things wrapped up in this other than just people from New Tampa, you know, I'm not saying just, but like, there's a lot of things wrapped up in this. And I think that it's fair to say that when there's a massive amount of community opposition that comes out against something, like that's really significant. And that is what happened with this. We don't get that for the Macintosh roads. But we did get that for this, and a little bit had changed with that language being removed in 2021. And I think that really should be respected.
But how do you
Mr.
explain?
Sink, hold on, Dr. Davidson, we'll come back. Mr. Sink?
I think in my perspective, the issue with this is the notice. Like, I love that 900 people up in New Tampa showed up. Fantastic. I love that Tampa Heights and Seminole Heights gets activated and they have public thing. But when you change things on the 11th hour without public impact, you're not serving your constituents. You're doing something without full notice and full disclosure. So if we're gonna do things, we need to do it in the daylight and not do it as a 11th hour change that does not allow people from both sides of the argument to voice their opinions. That's like I said.
If I could.
We'll come back to you as well.
Yeah,
Andruski.
actually, I agree with that 100%. I, to be honest with you, I'm not sure how I feel about the project. I would, like Jim, I live in New Tampa area. And I use that road to get to the airport, to get down, to get to these meetings.
To get to work.
But I also think that a lot of the capacity we're building is accommodating the overwhelming growth in Pasco County. But I do think regardless of how I end up feeling about it, I think the process is wrong. I think the fact that it was done without a public hearing and it was sort of a last minute thing, that does trouble me. And I support going back. And in fact, I would think that there would be legal challenges to that. You know, it was done without proper noticing and public hearing. But let's do that and hear it out and then we'll decide. But I agree with your intention of, you know, it was done not properly. So let's do whatever we're gonna do properly and then decide what we'll do.
Anybody else from the right?
I'd like to comment on this.
Dustin?
I mean, I don't even live near it or anything, but I can imagine so that the whole reason for it is because of the capacity issue. Now, I understand both sides of the argument. My only thing is my path to my place of employment, I've seen over the years changes being made that affecting those of us trying to get into it, right? And to me, I look at this being actually what Dr. Davidson is saying is it's a niche entity. I don't want to confirm, but I mean, it's a small group that's affecting the over masses. And I guess the question is, what's the resolution for this? I mean, we've heard mass transportation, but is that gonna come in enough time? I mean, would widening the interstate help a little bit until we can find other solutions? I just, we're in a catch-22. We're gonna be damned if we do it and damned if we don't, you know? So we just have to look at what do we want Tampa to be? We want Tampa to still be this place that people enjoy and come and think of it as a great place, or are we gonna create it to where now we're gonna have an exit flow? Because why? It's taking me too long to get my place of employment, become way too expensive, because you're forcing me onto the express toll roads. You know, that's my stuff in the nature.
Thank you, Dustin. Ivina, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I'd like to comment. I actually live in New Tampa, and up until like a month ago, I had a residence also in Seminole Heights. So saying, I think it goes back to what he was saying, right? It doesn't matter all of the other things that we're talking about for me. It's more about like making sure the public has an accurate comment. We don't change things last moment, and we do it the appropriate way. So if all the New Tampa people want to come out and say, I want you to expand it, all the Seminole Heights people say no, and then it actually is put up to the people to actually figure it out, as opposed to us just deciding based on our meetings.
Thank you. Anybody else over here? Anybody online that's still around?
There are no CDC members online.
Okay. Anybody else want to throw in, something in 15 seconds? And yeah, Mr.
I
Davidson.
just wanted to, I appreciate the catch-22. And I do understand that sometimes there isn't you have to take the lesser of two evils. But I wanted to impress upon you, how do you explain the gentrification of Tampa Heights and what's going on in Seminole Heights and what's going to continue there as the property values go up? And they are going up tremendously. I have friends that live there, and they're, so to explain that I-275 is doing all this, people are moving in there. So you have that conundrum. And then you were talking about mass transit. And I explained how the Hillsborough County Expressway Authority was going to put mass transit in from Wesley Chapel, which would take more cars off the road than what you were calculating. And it was never adequately investigated as to what was going to happen to the entire county. A small community, they have a right to stand up and say that. The West Meadows people had a right to stand up, but the whole area has to be heard from. And that's why I quoted that survey that said the people in Lutz and the people in New Tampa and the people in Odessa, they all wanted it widened, and they were ignored. So I think if you took a vote, you put it on the ballot, Seminole Heights would lose. Sunshine would lose. And if you look at it that way, they are serving their constituents. And sometimes there's things that people in New Tampa have to pay, all the CRAs downtown. They wouldn't exist without New Tampa's money. We don't like it, but we put up with it.
Thank you, Dr. Davidson. We've got to hear all the perspectives on what is the most interesting and topic that we debate at the CAC, I think. I want to just say I would have loved to have had this with some FDOT representatives here to hear why capacity being added matters and what the implication is, and if there's some reason that makes sense. And I also want to say I will be supporting this motion. I'm from Plant City constituents. They want to widen a road like this. And but I've watched you, Rick, talk about this topic for 6 years now. And I think I just support you here. This is you got to be pulling your hair out when you heard that thrown in, one quick amendment at the last meeting. But okay, so I think we have a motion that was
seconded by somebody.
Seconded by Matt Singh. And now we are going to take a roll. Voice roll. Gail, can you help us take a roll call? Yeah, Matt?
Can you restate it so everybody knows exactly what the language was?
Yeah.
Fair.
It's a motion to strike capacity project language from the tip for the line item addressing I-275 north of Hillsborough to north of Beers. I'm sorry, I don't know what that line item is now, but because I think there's been some shuffling, but it doesn't matter. There's only one stretch of road from there to there. And it's got capacity in it now, thanks to Commissioner Wastel.
It was at the time of the tip public hearing, it was F3.
So was it a public hearing?
This,
It's at the tip
this
here.
was at the tip public, you were there.
Okay, Gail, can you please take a roll call?
Yes, I can. Rick Fernandez,
Yes.
Stephen Hollenkamp,
Yes.
Dana Lazarus,
Yes.
Jim Davidson,
No.
Joseph Citro,
Yes.
Matt Stink,
Yes.
Bill Roberts. Are you still online?
Bill is no longer online.
Thank you. Ed Mrzewski,
Yes.
Chris Gonzalez,
Yes.
Dustin Johnson,
And I
Is
abstain.
You cannot abstain, I'm sorry.
I have to vote yes or no.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Sarah, is he allowed to
Yeah.
abstain?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Evia Adams,
Yes.
Stephen Jones.
Yes.
The motion passes 10-1.
Thank you.
Pass the gavel back.
Okay, well, that takes us to the next CAC meeting with September 4. Anybody have member interest or future topic requests?
Rick, I would urge people at the beginning of the meeting, you mentioned these two items at the bottom of addendum. By all means, go to that link, build infrastructure, not political agendas. I have worked with Florida DOT for 40 years, and I have never seen the level of, pardon me, inane politicization of Florida DOT as I see in that. It's turned my stomach.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And as I stated at the beginning too, I am requesting, I requested then, I'm requesting again now. I would like a presentation through TPO staff with FDOT present to discuss their role in the administration of this particular website and what it is we can expect from them going forward. Anyway, that's a future topic. Don't have the bandwidth for that today. Anything else by way of future topic or member interest? See anything? Well, if I don't hear any objection, I'm prepared to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. Thank you. For the support. I mean, I kind of figured it being, but, you got different, I understand.
Yeah. Take, no,